Welcome to the 2025, 15th of September 2025 Cabinet meeting. It's a packed agenda tonight. I'd like to welcome everybody who's taken the trouble to come here. My name is Stephen Cowan. I'm the leader of the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. Before we start, I have a few housekeeping points. There will not be a fire test tonight. If you hear a fire alarm, then I would ask you to leave at the back door in orderly fashion, turn right and leave at the door immediately to your right. And can I also note that this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. And so by taking part in the meeting, you therefore agree for us to be able to use your image and to broadcast it accordingly. I would now like to start by introducing members of the Cabinet, and I will start with Councillor Andrew Jones, who is being live streamed into us. So good evening, Andrew.
Good evening. I'm Councillor Andrew Jones. I'm Cabinet Member for the Economy.
That's you. There you go. Cabinet Member for the Economy. And I'll begin at my left with the councillor over there.
Hi, my name's Councillor Borakwan. I'm the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care and Health.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Florent Chabot-Verdier, Cabinet Member for Public Realm.
Hello, good evening, Councillor Francis Ume, Cabinet Member for Housing and Homelessness.
Good evening, everyone. Councillor Rowan Ray, Cabinet Member for Finance and Reform.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Alex Sanderson. I'm the Deputy Leader and responsible for children and education.
Councillor Wesley Harcourt, Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Ecology.
Hello, good evening. I'm Councillor Rebecca Harvey, Cabinet Member for Social Inclusion and Community Safety.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Zarar Keum, Cabinet Member for Enterprise and Skills.
Great. We're also joined by Sharon Lee, the Chief Executive, and by Grant Degg, who is the Monitoring Officer. I would like to welcome Councillor Adronny Alford and thank her for her continued scrutiny, and also welcome Jose Alfonso, also from the Conservatives. Welcome. We have with us Ward Councillor Max Schmidt, and I can see outside Councillor Natalia Perez, and I can't see if anyone else is in the room. Can I begin by, before we move on to the full agenda, by asking if there are any declarations of interest? The minutes of the previous meeting, are they noted? Okay, and no matters arising. Can I start then by thanking and noting that Councillor Frances Stainton sadly passed away earlier this summer. And this is the first council meeting that we've had to recognise her contribution. And I do recognise that Councillor Stainton, a Conservative councillor, worked extremely hard for the people of Fulham for a very long period of her adult life. And it was one of the reasons that we as an administration awarded her the freedom of the borough, because of her diligence and respect to the people who sent her to represent them. It is always very difficult, no matter what political persuasion you come from, to make that commitment to day in, day out, work with your constituents and always put their interest first. And I absolutely believe Frances Stainton did that. She was also, as the mayor, an extremely admirable character. I remember, despite being in the later stages of her life, she threatened to do a charity parachute jump to raise money for many of her mayoral charities. She was one of a kind, and whilst we will speak about her at the next full council, I did want to put on record that this administration and this council remains extremely grateful for her public service, and we send our sincerest thanks and good wishes to her family and loved ones. I don't know if Councillor Alford or Alfonso, if you'd like to say anything along those lines. I'll go first, then you go.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. Your words are hugely appreciated. The loss of Frances, for me, I not only lost a former colleague, but I lost a mentor. So Frances is one of the reasons I ended up standing for council. She took me under her wing when I was about 19, 20, trained me up, taught me the ropes. I have very fond memories of her, canvassing, the phone calls, fact, one of her last phone calls was right before I went away on holiday in August, always checking in, always making sure if I needed a friendly word, some advice, that 32 years of experience, always on hand. I can confirm, right to the end, she was razor sharp, always on the ball. And I will miss her dearly, and my sincere condolences to her family. Councillor?
Very, very, very brief.
Yes.
Well, we were both elected on the same day. Yes, did you not realise that? So we both served in many different guises, and she was a tireless worker and represented her ward admirably. She'll be sorely missed by everybody.
Well, thank you. We won't do a minute's silence now because we will do that at the full council, but I hope her family hear that we recognised her service. Okay, I will now move to item number 4, and the first item is the consideration of a petition to fix Oxbridge Road, no more neglect, no more crime. Can I start by just apologising for what appeared to be a misunderstanding outside? Quite a handful of people weren't being allowed in because of the health and safety capacity of this room, but it's pretty evident when I got in, you could sit people in the back room. So we've now got people in the back room, and I understand we've got everybody a seat, I hope, as I instructed, and sincerely thank everybody for coming to this meeting in order to raise their concerns. We have a lead petitioner, Noor Al-Naim, and so I'd like to welcome you and just set out how this works. So this is the Cabinet meeting of the London Borough of Hammersmith. It's a formal meeting that's set up by statute. It's where we enact formal decisions, and that's how we enact our legal powers. The Constitution gives you 5 minutes strictly, so I appreciate you'll be within that, but in order to get more time and to hear more of your concerns, we will ask you questions and give you a chance to say more things. Okay, if you're ready to start, we will start now.
I speak tonight for the voice of thousands. Our petition to fix Oxbridge Road is one of the loudest this borough has ever seen. 5 minutes is not enough time to explain the issues, the hundreds of unpaid hours undertaken by residents doing the council's job for them. Residents are saying with one voice, Oxbridge Road is unsafe, neglected, inaccessible, and doesn't cater for the people who actually live there. Let's be clear. The steps you claim to have taken are not what residents have asked for. We didn't ask for chewing gum removal, nor have we asked for cosmetic pavement cleans. This is what our council tax funds. We didn't ask for murals on unlawful solid metal shutters that should never have been there in the first place. Residents demand radical visual improvements, enforcement, accessibility and safety. 15 weeks ago, you publicly promised to remove 8 telephone boxes, declutter the road, introduce timed waste collections, investigate Jan Katijn's 2024 report, investigate a bid, and you acknowledge that Hammersmith and Fulham each individually have one. Yet here we are 15 weeks later with no tangible outcomes. Waltham Forest Council used Jan Katijn and recreated their high street within a year. Haringey Council within a year. What do we get promised in a year? Paint on a bridge that was meant to happen next month, now in spring 26. Let's take a look at other examples. The council talk about the road as vibrant, diverse and unique. The reality is monoculture in decline. 8 betting shops, 40% of the borough's total on one road. 1 next door to a primary school and 2 places of worship. 13 chicken shops, that's 1 every 45 metres. Many besides schools, breaching your duties under the Environmental Protection Act. 15 2-in-1 shops, units carved into stalls, degrading the road and making it look like a bazaar. 14 money exchange shops, 37 grocery shops, 8 phone repair shops, 7 pound shops, 6 travel agents. Meanwhile, between 100 to 500 of the road, what's missing is equally telling. There are no bookshops, no co-working spaces, no family cafes, no sophisticated restaurants, no fitness facilities, no women's clothing shops, no welcoming spaces for women, children and the elderly. Our survey confirms this. Only 15% are satisfied with the businesses on the road. 76% are dissatisfied. Residents describe Oxbridge Road as tatty, a dumping ground, gently rotting over 20 years. The streetscape reflects the decline. Shop signs and awnings are broken, filthy or run down. Empty shops, solid shutters dominate, graffiti, dangling wires, litter, dealers in broad daylight. This is not unique character, this is institutionalised neglect. You claim you can't compel landlords or tenants because businesses predate policy, but you recently approved a 24-hour bingo on top of 8 betting shops already in Shepherd's Bush Green, a top 10 ASB hotspot. Not only is this tone deaf, it breaches your duty under the Crime and Disorder Act. Section 215 of the Town and Country Planning Act allows you to act where premises harm amenity. Your policies can help us, yet your head of enforcement dismisses complaints about the visual state, saying it's representative of the area. That is not enforcement, it's institutionalised neglect. 86% agree that the council has neglected Oxbridge Road in favour of other areas of the borough. Women feel unsafe on the road. The leader called Oxbridge Road one of the finest streets in this borough. A finest street is not where only 7% agree with you. It's not women avoiding walking on this road. It is not children taking Ubers to school instead of walking on the road. It is not crumbling facades and lawlessness. Residents told us it stops me from inviting people over. It doesn't make me feel safe as a woman. It's the Wild West at night. I'm embarrassed to invite friends to this awful part of the borough. Under the Equality Act, you have a duty to ensure safety and equal access for women. Women avoiding Oxbridge Road is a breach of your duty. Accessibility. Pavements are narrow and blocked. 125 unlicensed A-boards, goods spilling out, cluttered furniture, rubbish, unlawful parking. Pushchairs and wheelchairs forced into cycle lanes. 75% of residents say walking here is difficult. A disabled resident said it's a nightmare with obstacles everywhere and bikes on the pavement. You're breaching your duties to people, especially the disabled and vulnerable, under the Highways Act and Equality Act. All of this sits metres away from Westfield, BBC, Imperial College, the list goes on. These institutions generate millions, but where is the revenue from them going, and why is it not going into Oxbridge Road? Even Parliament has written about this petition. We are demanding enforcement of your own rules and urgent, targeted, radical investment. Other councils have done the same, and you've done it in other parts of the borough. There's no reason you can't do it here. Within 3 months, remove illegal A-boards, declutter pavements, enforce parking and licensing, replace all bike bollards, clean and replace awnings, repaint the bridge, expedite planning permission applications that will help improve the road. Within 12 months, like other councils have, deliver the long-promised Shopfront renewal programme, make the road brighter, newer, smarter and more uniform, widen pavements, add greenery, remove solid shutters, repurpose existing shops. Why do you treat Oxbridge Road differently from other parts of the borough? Are you implying that because it's more ethnically diverse, the residents deserve less? You are a 250 million council with 532 million signed off budget in the next 4 years to spend on improvements. How much will you commit to Oxbridge Road, and will you agree to this plan tonight? No more surveys, consultations, delay tactics, urgent, visible, bold action on the street now, not in years.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And clearly, you've given this an awful lot of work. What we'd like to do is just go through some of the things that you're talking about. So if we take the sort of BT telephone boxes first, could you just flush out a bit more about what you think, what you would like us to do? And can I stress that Oxbridge Road is a very important road to us. We've put vast amounts of investment into it over the last 10 years. And more importantly, we've attracted a tremendous amount of private investment, and that's what we're still trying to do. So I just want to clear up, this is not a second-rate street. Many of our councillors live around here, and I know many of the councillors who grew up here would argue that the ethnic diversity makes it stronger, and it's certainly not a reason for underfunding it. So that's certainly not the case. Now, I can see that you have some very strong views on this. I'm keen to understand what you would like us to do differently. Be working over the next period of time with a series of different residents groups to strengthen all our high streets, including Oxbridge Road, and I can give you that assurance. But I'm keen, because you obviously have done a lot of research on this, to understand the powers you want us to have on, for example, things like betting shops and telephone boxes and crime and get a better feeling for that, because there is no street in Hammersmith and Fulham we want any woman or any disabled person to feel frightened of going down. There is no high street anywhere in the borough, particularly in Oxbridge Road, where we want to see it substandard. And we have a series of frustrations about some things, and it'd be interesting to see if you share those. But we'd like to understand more about what it is that and where you would like us to act. Can we just start on the what you were saying on the BT phone boxes? You said you want them all gone. What was the time period?
If I could just start from with one point, please, because you've mentioned that I have strong views. This is not just my petition. There are 3,256 people that signed this petition overall. This is one of the largest petitions the borough has ever seen in 23 years. And there are plenty of people here today to back this up as well. So the survey that I've quoted that from is as a result of 276 responses that have been in the last 2 weeks alone. And I think it's quite telling that the first question that you're asking is about a third party that isn't necessarily within the council's remit. So I would point that out. There are 8 telephone boxes that you committed to in May that you were getting removed. Now, I have spoken to BT personally and spent time. They are saying that there are 4 telephone boxes that they were planning to remove on the week commencing the 25th of August. They haven't done that yet, but it's not 8. So which one is it? Because it sounds like press to me.
Sounds like what?
A press spin to me.
Sorry, I misunderstood.
Are you spinning the figures? Because I've got evidence that it says it's 4.
Right.
That's what BT have confirmed to me, and that's through my MP. You're saying, or maybe not yourself personally, H&F are saying it's 8.
Well, can we just clarify a couple of things? Firstly, we should all accept everyone's dealing in good faith. So no one here, if there's anything wrong with Oxbridge Road, wants to do anything other than fix it.
Great.
And I would ask you to just accept that. The second thing, we're going to go through all the list of your concerns. So, we're not going to cut you short.
Thank you.
And want to understand what you think we should do. And if we can do it, we will do it. If we can't do it yet, we will tell you where we're at with it. And if we can't do it and we need changes in legislation, we will tell you where we're at with that. But we are absolutely determined to raise the standard in Oxbridge Road. There should not be any doubt about that, not least because quite a lot of councillors here who represent Oxbridge Road live on it, have grown up near it, love it, and want to see it get better. So, and I know it's not your view. So if I gave in that impression, and I'm certainly not saying that, there's 3,000 people signed a petition, and there's a number of people here tonight, and I can see from the people I spoke to outside that feel very strongly. We're sympathetic to that, and that's why I'm going to go through all your points, because it's important, especially in this day and age, that we have a fact-based conversation.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'd like to do. Okay, just on that, the phone boxes, so you're saying the problem is the BT have told you they'll take out 4 and you want all 8 out. We've instructed all of them to go out and we're using legislation to do it. Bram, do you want to come and sit at the table? Yeah. And it's not just in Oxbridge Road we want them out. We want them out everywhere because they attract people urinating in them. They attract graffiti. And we think BT have had them historically from the days of the post office. We don't see any need for them now. They no longer have a facility. So just on that point, and just on that, what powers are you saying we should use? Because he understands, have we missed anything? Because
I've not been privy to what conversations you've had. I can only tell you what you've publicly committed to and what hasn't happened yet. My stance is I've personally emailed BT. They've said it's just 4. We've had the police get in touch with them off the back of my emails. Again, they're only committing to 4. And I've complained to Ofcom, which is their regulator. And, I don't know if you have, because I haven't been privy to those conversations.
Okay. Bram, do you want to talk about what we're doing? The instruction is to get rid of all of them. I know BT sought to try and negotiate that with us because they try and advertise on them. Bram, what's your view on the telephone boxes and how are we trying to get rid of them? And can you talk about why there's been a delay?
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. Just put it into context, BT have powers to put these telephone boxes on the highway under the Telecommunications Act. So hence why we as a highway authority, we have to actually work with them, negotiate with them, actually try and get that change. But one of the things that we're doing with Forward Thinking Council, where we're looking at a community protection notice, because we think that the telephone boxes haven't actually been looked after, they're in a bad state. And we've actually formally our lawyers have actually written to BT. And in the process, they've come back and said, look, they welcome any feedback the residents have about the telephone boxes. But the number I have been given is actually they're proposing that they accept that they will remove 7 from Uxbridge Road. And also we've been in conversations with the New World ones as well, and they're looking to remove 8 from those. So in total, we hopefully we can try and get them removed, but we will need to take legal action under the community protection notice to do that, and that will take some time because it will have to go through the legal process if they, for whatever reason, don't agree with our suggestion. But in this case, I think we've got a very good positive step forward with BT, and they will, let us know exactly when they will remove them. But they're happy to actually do that. So it's part of their program anyway. Yeah.
Thank you. And you mentioned that it's going to take time. Do you have a time scale?
Yeah, I will bring you in to ask questions.
All right, okay.
but we do have a process that you have to go
No
through.
problem.
So just on that, Bram, are you saying you can move all of them out? And what's been the problems with the timescale? Because Ms. Al-Naim said that we promised we'd have it done in the last week of, BT promised that it would be done in the last week of August, and then they haven't done it. So what's the situation?
Yeah, I'm not saying I can remove all the telephone boxes because BT are quite adamant that they want to keep some, but we're working constructively with them in order to actually determine what we can do to improve the state of the telephone boxes that they want to keep. But the ones that they're happy to remove, they will remove. And actually getting a point where we can actually get 7 removed plus 8 from another company is I think is a positive step. But it is a legal process and it is a negotiation. So you either go through the negotiation route or you go to the legal process. But the time it takes, I'm not going to sit here and tell you a time period because then I'll miss it. And then you say, I missed that date.
So the date's from BT, it's not from us. But what you're saying is we're trying to negotiate them out because the instruction from me is to get rid of all of them. But you're saying is to try and negotiate them out. But actually, if you can't negotiate them out, we will use the full powers of the law to try and get them out.
That's right.
What legal advice? Well, I won't go into that now.
Yeah.
Ms. Al-Naim, would you like to ask more questions about that particular issue, please?
I think I'd like a dialogue to be opened with us so that we are all aligned. I mean, this is the first time I've met you and I've spoken about the telephone boxes at length to people within this table. So no one mentioned that this was the work that you were doing in the dialogue. We just had the public statement that there were 8 telephone boxes looking to be removed. That was in May, and we've not got one removed, and it's mid-September.
Can I just come back on that? Yeah. Just to reiterate, this is a legal process. So us taking, community protection notice order against BT, you wouldn't like it if I was taking, prosecution action possibly against yourself and things like that. So there is something that is actually done, and we need to take that forward in a way because we are threatening that action at this point. But at the present moment, we're trying to.
It doesn't matter whether BT like it or not, because honestly, I don't care. Well, what you're saying is it would be easier if they took them out rather than us trying to enforce it, which could then take quite a lot of time.
I appreciate that. I understand how legal processes work. I think what I'm trying to say is that earlier on you said that there were 7 that they were happy to remove. That is what you said a few minutes ago. That doesn't need a legal process from what, from your own words.
No, the last.
Sorry, can I just cut in? So, like I said, we should all just accept everyone's acting in good faith.
And I am, but I'm allowed to question it.
Let me just say, what I think he's saying is we have no power on making them do it if it's a negotiation, if they've said they're going to do it. The backup is to go to court. And what Bram's arguing is we've asked BT to remove it and they've said they would remove it. Clearly it's they who have not removed the telephone boxes, but we're determined to get rid of, I would like to get rid of all of them.
Yeah.
I don't think they are in any way a necessity in this modern age. But we have to act within the law, or we have to ask people to do stuff voluntarily. And that's what I think he's saying. So in terms of what would you want us to do other than that?
Well, court action happens when the other party disputes it. So again, going back, if BT are saying that they are fine to remove 7, why have 7 not been removed?
They're going to program the works into happen. I can get details of that, but I haven't been given those details by BT at the present moment. So
unless we enforce them to make them move it, then we're relying on them to remove it. So we can ask them again to remove it, confirm that they've said they will remove it, and we've got the option then to take action, but actually it'd be better if they just removed it. The question why they have not been removed is not for us unless we legally sue them, and that will take some time. So at the moment, let's get rid of those 7, and let's get rid of how many others was it from the other company?
8.
8. So let's get rid of the 15 telephone boxes and take it from there. But, if you're asking me why have BT not removed it, I'm not able to talk on their behalf. And having dealt with BT in the past, it's, I wouldn't dream of answering for them. I have my own frustrations with them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm not saying that you would know why BT can. I'm saying that I'm just going by the facts that you've all presented. My ask would be, have you given them a time frame to which then you'll be able to enforce something to say they didn't meet their time frame, or are you just entering into negotiation to say, can you remove it? Great, and then leaving them to it?
No, we always give time frames. We always say we want them moved by a date. I don't know where the end of August has come from.
End of August comes from my own correspondence with
so
them.
if they've given you that assurance, then that's something we will follow up. But we will certainly write to you and tell you where we are with them and what dates we're moving out. But I can tell you, no one wants to move more than me, because I hate them. I hate them all over the borough. They are a blight on the public realm. And who doesn't have a mobile phone? Who's using a telephone box? They're purely there for archaic reasons, and they shouldn't be there. So we're not against what you're saying. It's just the process of how we make it happen. We can talk about that outside this room at another occasion if you want, but that is where we're at with the phone boxes. Do you have anything else on the phone boxes?
No, that's a small part of the petition.
All right. The next thing you mentioned was the betting shops.
Yeah.
8 betting shops. Can you tell us what you'd like us to do with the betting shops? And I've read your document. I've got it here. So I've got the document here, and I've seen it.
Yeah.
And you could add in the payday loan shops as well, and those types of institutions.
Well, for one, I don't think that any betting shop should be next door to a top primary school, and never mind what rating it is, no primary school whatsoever, and 2 places of worship, a mosque and a church. So as I understand it, that's a license that's granted by the council. I've spoken to Ladbrokes personally on this issue. They've said the council allowed us to do it, and that gambling licenses, as far as I'm aware, are 5 years long. Therefore, they come up for renewal. What I'm asking the council to do is to expedite and revoke some of those licenses in the interest of the public and the residents that live there.
And you quoted aspects of the law because you've done research on this. What were, I mean, just so I can ask the officials to come back on that, what was the legal powers you were quoting?
Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act requires the council to consider crime and disorder in every decision. So before allowing ship please, which is another example of a 24-hour bingo at a Met Police recognised top 10 ASB hotspot, how did you not recognise your duty there? And how on earth was it acceptable to permit that to be opened? That's this year. That's one question. Yeah. Well, just in case I don't know if you know about ship please.
Just going back to the first one, just because we don't like payday loan shops, we don't like betting shops, we've got them all over the borough, we see them as a blight. I've asked for the strongest possible powers, and we've signed a petition to lobby the government to pass a law to give us those powers. But at the moment, we're advised we don't have the powers to close betting shops, and we would if we could. What are you saying in terms of the betting shops that are there? What are you saying we should be doing, we're not be doing? And I'll ask him to come back on it. If you're right and we're wrong, I promise you, we will act on it.
Yeah. Well, I asked already, revoke the licenses when they come up for renewal. That would be a first step. You mentioned that they're all over the borough, the betting shops, but you've got, from a 2024 report, 21 betting licenses all over Hammersmith and Fulham. 8 of them are on Oxbridge Road. There's a clear over clustering that's happened that's not acceptable to residents. There has to be powers for a council. I mean, this is what you're elected for, to get involved if there's extreme cases of over clustering that can cause danger to, whether that's to children or to people.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with what you said, but you said there has to be powers. We've raised this an awful lot, and I don't believe it's anyone's difference on this. It's a London-wide issue. Often you'll see these betting places go in next to Wetherspoons and places like that. And often you see, in my view, they're taking advantage of extremely vulnerable people. Added to that, they blight a high street. Added to that, it then makes the high street uninvestable. So getting rid of those places is extremely important. But we recently joined in with Brent Council and others with a letter to the government asking them to act immediately to give us those powers. I've been advised we don't have those powers. I'm going to ask Bram now to talk about that. If you're saying we do, because we can get misadvised, I would happily look at that. We will go out on a limb if we have to stop betting shops and to revoke the licenses. But I've long been advised, and I've dealt this with many times, not just in Oxbridge Road, but in other roads. We simply don't have the powers, which is why there's a huge lobby going on now with the new government to change the law. But are you saying we've misunderstood the law, and in which case I'll ask him to come in on that in a second, or are you saying that you think we should have the powers, in which case I agree with you?
I'm saying that we should work together. If your view is aligned with ours, then we can work together to get this changed. I'm saying that we should be revoking the existing licenses.
Let's just stop on that then. Do we have the powers to revoke the existing licenses of the betting shops? And in particular, what Ms. Al-Neem is saying is that because there is a cluster and because some of those betting shops are near schools where teenagers may, be at risk of, is there any aspect of the law that we can use to say, not that we want to stop them opening, because we'll come up with the bingo place in a minute, but we want to close them down?
Leader, thank you very much. We've taken the best legal advice possible to try and take as much a robust policy on our gambling policy at the present moment. Because we've taken that approach, we're getting challenged, JR'd by that, and that is something which is going through the process. So this has gone to the highest level in terms of legal advice, and we're trying to actually make sure we can actually do precisely what we're saying. So our objective is to try and manage this as proactively and positively as we can. So.
Okay, I'm going to ask the borough solicitor to come and take a seat at the table. And he's covered it.
Yeah. But can I respond to that? Because that policy doesn't apply, it is not retrospective. So what because you gave that same paragraph to the press when they wrote an article quite recently on gambling shops and used Oxbridge Road as an example. That doesn't help this situation. We are talking precisely about repurposing existing shops and the fact that those are licenses. They're temporary for a reason. It's not an evergreen license. And Ladbrokes themselves have said it's the council who've permitted us to open beside a primary school.
So, look, are you saying the new betting shops have opened recently in Uxbridge Road and the council allowed that to happen? That wasn't challenged?
It was in 2007.
So the last one was in 2007?
That one next to a school.
No, the one next to the school, there's two different things. Please is the bingo, 24-hour bingo. Yeah, but you asked me which one it was, so I'm simply responding to you. What I've just said there was about Ladbrokes. I don't know what year it was, but I know that there are 5-year licenses with betting shops.
Well, look, why don't we do this? Because you're on exactly the same page as us. I am personally very against gambling shops, and I say that guardedly because this is a public meeting, and I know we get a lot of judicial challenge when we turn them down. But why don't we have you work with our lawyers and look at what can happen? But what I'm currently advised, and I'm obliged, I can't instruct the council to take legal action if there is no law for us to act on, is we don't have the legal ability to close them. I promise you, if we did, we would. Now, what we will do is look again at the law, and you can come in and go through it with us, but we can't just close it like that because we have to act within the law. Otherwise, they will fight back. If that's the case, we've not got anywhere. So I'm happy to have you come in and meet our lawyers. You can bring your own legal advice and we can see if there's a way forward on that. But I can assure you, if we could close these things down, we would, because we think they blight the area, as do payday loan places, as do pawn shops, as do all the other places that we think are a sign of a struggling high street. So would that be the solution you like?
It's a step forward. It's not, it's obviously not necessarily a solution. The solution is to change that. When it changes, then we'll get there. But it's great to hear that you are on the same page. But what we're seeing, of course, is that with the Shipley's example, it doesn't look like the council's on the same page, hence why we're bringing these examples to you.
Yeah, well, with Shipley's, I mean, I've long been, I'm reticent, I'm reticent to say too much of his point, but I can assure you we met with the property owner of when that application came in for a bingo, and made it very clear that we didn't want one, and we took a lot of legal advice about what we could to stop it, and we couldn't. And we went through that several times, to the extent that after having taken the legal advice, I actually called the new owner of the W12 centre in and said, you need to just get this out, and he couldn't. And that is because, obviously, in a society governed by law, you have to operate within the law. I'm not saying, as you will know from why we have a High Court and a Supreme Court and a Court of Appeal, that all the legal advice we ever get is right, which is why I'm asking you if you had different legal advice. But what I am saying is we tested this a lot and we had no option. But we're very much against any form of gambling opening up. We think it's the wrong thing for that area. And indeed, we've got a different plan for the area, which we can talk about near the end.
Just a question for you on that. Did you, in terms of challenging Shipley's, use your duty under Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act? Because that would have been your, a valid duty for you to use to get that at least the hours reduced. Because almost the cherry on the top is that it's 24 hours.
Yeah. We looked at every single law available to us, and one of them is the Crime and Disorder Act, which is partly how we're dealing with some of the telephone boxes, because it attracts disorder. Grant, you're a lawyer. Can you talk about the Shipley's case, which is the bingo hall in the W12 centre?
Thank you, Leader. Thank you. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of that actual application that came in, with that license application and the facts of it. However, with where we are with it, the advice that would have been received would have been all through the barristers and those teams that are dealing with that. However, as you have suggested, we are currently under judicial review of our current licensing applications regarding gambling and bingos.
So can you talk about what we did? Because we passed, it was the cabinet, it was a few cabinet meetings. I can't remember which one.
It was a cabinet in the sort of March.
So we took a measure on trying to limit gambling establishments across Hammersmith and Fulham. We're being judicially reviewed on that measure. Do you want to? I mean, I know it's maybe not the right thing to talk about.
I can't talk about obviously too much because it's subject to a live application. However, any application, even if we were seeking a revocation or a review of the license, would be subject to that gambling and licensing policy that is currently under judicial review.
That policy is under judicial review, but as stated before, that doesn't apply for the majority of the establishments on Oxbridge Road, so it doesn't help with this petition.
No, I think what we're establishing is we don't have different objectives to you, but where the law hinders us, it hinders us. And that's what we're sort of trying to get to, which is why I'm saying if you've got different legal advice and it's a way in, I promise you we will do it. But we can't, we have to do it lawfully, otherwise we can't do it. That's the nature of our society.
One of your MPs, Joe Powell, intended from the Chelsea, managed to shut down too. Why don't you speak to him and find out how he did it?
Without knowing what he did, we will listen to. No, I know. Without knowing how he did it, I should say. I appreciate I may misspeak. Without knowing how he did it, then I can promise you what anyone's doing, including Joe Powell MP, if he's done something, we will, and it works for us, we will do it. And better than that, we will share with you what our findings are so you can see how we're trying to do it and be part of that. So you can share our hopes and frustrations. But if he's done something successful, we haven't done it, we will do the same thing. Just on that, so is there anything else on the gambling shops? We have, I think the conclusion here is what I've just said. Is there anything else you'd want us to do on that?
What do you mean the conclusion is what you've said?
Well, we've signed a petition asking the government for extra powers on gambling shops. We will always act to stop new gambling bingo shops where we have the legal powers. We have signed a paper to change the borough's rules on gambling shops at this full cabinet meeting earlier this year. That paper is indicative of what we're trying to do, but it's also indicative of the fact that we're legally challenged by the gambling industry for trying to do it. We will share that with you. And what I would ask is that if we share that detail with you, then we look at what the strategy might be to reduce them, because it's not simply the case that I can click my fingers and make them go. It would be.
I haven't asked for you to click your fingers though, so let's be clear. I've asked for them to be revoked at the end of the 5 years, and I've not had assurance that we can do that.
Yeah, just on that, along with because I think we're maybe talking at cross purposes. Do you want to answer that question?
I think with every license would need to be without predetermination on a license, unfortunately. Therefore, would have to be on the evidence that is based in front of that is brought forward to the licensing committee in order for it to properly to be determined.
Yeah, so it's on a case-by-case basis, which we can support you with. I mean, on the face of it, reputationally, a Ladbrokes objecting to a licence being revoked when there's a primary school and 2 places of worship next to it would go down really badly for their own reputation. So I suspect that they wouldn't challenge that, but that is just my view on the face of it. It doesn't mean it's wrong though. It means that we can challenge and revoke those licenses and take it from there. I don't think it's enough to say we've signed a petition, we're trying to improve gambling rules. Do they apply retrospectively or not? Because again, if they don't, we're back in the same position that we are today.
No, look, I think what I'm saying is that we will use the full powers of the law to revoke where we can to limit, and that's absolutely clear. What I'm not clear about is whether we have the powers to take away Ladbrokes. You're saying that Ladbrokes will agree because it's next to a school. Well, they can move out tomorrow if they want to agree. So we could, but without being able to legally enforce that, we can't enforce it. So yeah. I'm saying where we have the powers, we'll get rid of them. That's what we have been trying to do, and we have not been successful in quite a lot of cases. So frustrated by this, we decided to strengthen our powers earlier this year, and that's what we passed. That was a rule at this cabinet meeting, and that's being challenged by the gambling industry. So, you know, I think there might be a bit of misunderstanding. If we have the powers, as your colleague said, I promise you we will act. And what I'm saying is, because you might not trust us to do that, we will show you our workings so you can say you've missed this or missed that. But if it's true that the Crime and Disorder Act is a silver bullet and we can use those things, which I don't think it is. I know we can use it on some things, like we're using it in some. I don't think it is in this instance, but if it is, we'll use it.
And have you revoked any licenses or attempted to in the last, 20 years?
So you cannot, I'm sorry, I'm clearly not being clear. We don't have the powers to revoke licenses. It's the same with the chicken shops. We can stop new chicken shops opening. We can't take a license away from a chicken shop that's already been there.
That's not our understanding. And again, there would be no point in having a short-term license with the 5 years if the council had no powers whatsoever. But there are a lot of other points in this petition, and I'm conscious of time.
Yes.
What I would say is, again, if we are able to clarify, have you ever tried to revoke licenses? The Ladbrokes example that Councillor Sanderson just gave, 2007, it would have come up for renewal in 2012, then again in 17 and 22. Did you try and revoke any of the licenses?
We have tried to vote lots of licenses, but I'm saying to you, which I'm hoping, is not, I don't think it's an unfair point. We've regularly tried to revoke licenses. We've regularly tried to stop new licenses, and we've lost cases either at the inspector level when people have appealed or when they've sued us. I'm saying we will go through the legal advice individually with every single license, and we will try and do that. But I don't believe, I've been advised, we do not have the power to revoke licenses as you're arguing. And I would suggest that you're making some very sound points, but if we can't do it legally, we can't do it unless they agree privately. So I'm saying let's operate on the basis of what we can legally do and what we can't legally do. And in order to build some trust with you, we will share our workings so that you can see what we're doing. And if you've got other lawyers or barristers giving you different advice, we would welcome seeing that and interrogating that, and we will act. But I can't just say we're going to do this if we have not had the powers to do it. There's many instances, both as a ward councillor and as the leader of the council and other ward councillors around here, where we've said this licence should be revoked, and then we find we haven't been able to do it. So the law is as it is. That's why we've worked with Brent Council and others, many others across London, to try and get the government to strengthen our hand on this. But indeed, the government in 2020, the government weakened our hand on chicken shops, for example, by merging legislation. So we now have less powers. I think they did it because of a pandemic, but we now have less powers than we did before 2020. So is that? I'm sorry, I can't say yes, I'll get rid of them all, because I promise you, and these officers understand this, I would like to do that. But what I'm promising you is we will do everything possible to try and do this. We have tried in the past to do it. And if there's something we're missing, we will try, we would welcome that advice and insight from you. But it has to be legal advice and insight, given it's the law that governs this. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's a good step forward.
All right. Next then, just on the chicken shops, because we share again that they can blight a high street, and you can see that high streets are very, very challenged around the country. Do you want to just talk about that, Grant? I mean, the advice I've been given on this is you can stop new chicken shops coming forward. But for example, if the chicken shop was previously a fast food shop, it's very hard legally to win that case. But if it was a hardware shop and it got turned into a chicken shop, you can stop that. But if chicken shops have been there a long time and they were some other form of fast food, again, you cannot revoke the license. Now, do you have any? That's what I've been advised. Do you have any legal advice that says that's wrong? And therefore, what is it? Because we'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unfair to expect a resident in the area to be funding legal advice as part of our petition. There are 13 fried chicken shops. There are new ones that have been opening. 322 Oxbridge Road is due to become a chicken shop, and it hasn't opened yet. We've had next door to Pepe's on Wood Lane, another, I think it's called Kebab Star or something like that. It is just out of control, and some of them have 1-star, FSI, the food standard ratings. So there are different ways that you should be able to enforce something around this, whether that's healthy food options. We know that Tower Hamlets enforces no chicken shops within 400 metres. We know that Hackney enforces it, Hammersmith and Fulham don't. White City now has the highest child obesity rates in the borough, partly because of the fried chicken shops.
Okay, well, look, let me just clarify. I'm not expecting you to fund legal advice. You can imagine I've done this a long time, and often many of the people who present petitions or indeed come as part of residents are lawyers. And so often we do get different legal advice, and it's often very helpful. What I hope we can do is if you're saying we can do something, and I've been told by officials and lawyers we can't, I'm hoping we can have a conversation about what it is we can do. Because obviously, as I think you accepted earlier, we can only act within the law. On chicken shops then, what we've just heard from Ms. Al-Naim, and Bram, do you want to come forward? Maybe, yeah. So, I mean, maybe you should both just stay there. But what we've just heard, is other councils are taking measures to both stop and close down chicken shops. Now, we're intending to stop them, and that's certainly our policy. Also closing them down, and you've heard what I said about the advice we've had on that. Where are you on that, Bram?
Yeah, thank you very much. If other councils have found a way of actually doing that, and we're quite happy to listen to that and take that on board, but the challenges we have at the present moment is that in 2020, which is 5 years ago, all the Class C usage were actually brought together. So there's quite a number of uses that were brought together. So it's very easy for someone to actually change from what they're using the premises for at the present moment to a fast food location. That happened 5 years ago, so it makes it a little bit more challenging. But if you're saying that other local authorities have actually found a way of actually managing this and actually try and control it, then we're quite happy to look at that and take that forward. Yeah.
But given that we've talked about this in the past and said we want to be very robust on these things, we're very worried about not just Oxbridge Road, but other high streets we want to see made better. You know, are you saying that, you know, because you've taken obviously extensive advice on this, you saying there might be a way forward to do that?
There might be a way forward, but we need to look at what it is. It might not be through planning, it might be through a bylaw or introducing other measures to actually try and control the area or the high street. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's two different sides to it. What I've given is how other councils have approached it in terms of preventing fried chicken shops from, or any fast food from opening within 400 metres of a school. There are 4 schools on or around Oxbridge Road. You have the Environmental Protection Act, which is all about preventing health harms and allows the council to get involved on that. And then you've also got Section 89 of the same Act, which allows the council to have, well, in fact, it makes the council have a duty to keep the land and highways clear of litter and refuse. And so again, in our view, Oxbridge Road is generating a lot of litter as part of the petition. And that is probably a byproduct of all of the fast food chains.
Okay, there's a few things to unpack there. So you're saying there's a litter problem which is being generated by fast food chains, but also just let's stick with the getting rid of the fast food chains. I'm saying to you, we will have people from the council meet with you, share our workings, and tell you what actions we're taking. We will research every other council, although I've asked for them to do that already. And so the legal advice I've been given is we can't do that. But if there is a way forward, to close down chicken shops, we can't. What I've been advised is we can stop more chicken shops opening, and that's what we're intending to do. We don't think fast food places should be near schools, and indeed that is our policy. So on those two separate things, that's what we're going to do. We will share our workings with you on what we're doing, and we'll come back to you about Waltham Forest. I'm happy to take a question at the back. Yeah.
We have regular meetings with the police, and the police are constantly telling us that most of the people they arrest are not even residents of the borough. So it is attracting antisocial behaviour, it's causing problems, especially for residents who are at the top of the swing like Brickhill. There's massive problems there, there's the litter and everything. If you could just control their opening times as a starting point, that would reduce a lot of the issues.
Thank you for that point. It's an extremely good point. That is what we aim to do. And I don't really want to talk about it too much in a public meeting, but I can tell you we're being contested by several fast food providers at the moment because we've literally tried to do that. What you have is fast food providers now operating 2 different types of business model. The traditional place where people went and bought fast food and then the place closed and off they went, that business model died. It was accelerated by the pandemic. What you now have is that place plus delivery bikes and those places acting as delivery factories. So you have people at home sometimes wanting fast food until 2, 3 in the morning. Now, we take a very robust view on that, but the problem is, once again, when we do that, we find ourselves in the courts. And I don't want to say too much more about that, but I am saying that we hire KCs and KCs and senior barristers to fight our case for us. We don't always win them. But your view, sir, is one that is shared by this administration. It's not the future we imagine for our borough to be fast food factories, sending motorbikes which clog up the streets and often bring crime and antisocial behaviour. We don't see that as something that we want in our borough. But there is challenges around that. We would welcome extra powers. If you want to come back, I'm happy to take your question. I'm saying, sorry, maybe I haven't been clear. I'm saying we try to control opening times. We take very robust action, but sometimes it's a contested legal space. And I don't want to say, maybe I could catch you on the way outside, but I'd rather not say too much at this point. But where we can, we do, and we do contest. Okay, just can we go on to crime and that issue, because it's something this administration has made a great deal of effort on. Can you talk us through what your take is on that?
Crime is partly a police remit, which is why the petition doesn't touch upon it, because there's a separate issue to do with the police. In terms of antisocial behaviour, we've got drug addicts that, you know, regularly are on our streets. I mean, I've found them sleeping outside of my doorway. There's people, they're urinating in gardens. They're dealing in broad daylight. On top of that, women generally feel unsafe walking on the road, myself included. And that isn't just my experience. That is the experience of many women who are in this room today. That is a combination of different things, whether it's crime or antisocial behaviour. It's not necessarily always in the crime bucket. And your question is quite open-ended, so apologies if I'm not answering, but you know, it's not a lot to go on. There's a lot of loitering that happens on these roads. There's a lot of staring by men. And yes, I know you have sexual harassment powers by lets, but you have to catch that happening exactly at the time in order for any enforcement. The let team, when I've emailed them, are not very responsive on issues. For example, with the A boards, it's not crime, but it's still a breach of policy that isn't being enforced by the enforcement team.
I can promise you every piece of enforcement where we can enforce, we do. But just on the broader picture of crime, I've a lot of sympathy for police. I mean, this weekend with the far right march across central London, our police were there policing that, and that meant sitting in vans waiting to see if the disturbance happened, and then they would jump out the van. So that's what the police has to do, and we have a lot of those things. What we were aware of, because we came in on a ticket of being very tough on crime, is that meant quite often people were pulled out of Hammersmith and Fulham to go to Westminster and large parts of the other country. So what do you do? Because you're right, the crime agency is the police, but we have a duty to protect our residents. But more importantly, as elected representatives, we recognise that our residents expect us to go beyond those duties. Now, I can't stress enough that our budget in 2010 was 184 million, and now it's 132. So we've had huge financial challenges over that period which started with austerity. And that's why a lot of councils around the country aren't able to do this. But we set up a law enforcement agency. It took us a long time to actually get the law enforcement people recruited, and it's still quite hard to do that, train them up. We've got 72 strong law enforcement. We're looking to increase that. And what that does is it provides a police presence on the street that is not, we don't have a statutory duty to do that. We've done it as an extra to support the police, given the challenges they're in. But what that does is it allows us, where they can, to stop everything from, you know, low-level antisocial behaviour up to some serious drug dealing. So, for example, we were using them to tackle serious drug dealing on Shepherd's Bush Green for a long time, and then the police stepped in. But the fact that we had law enforcement officers doing it is unusual. It's a police matter. To back that up, we've got the greatest number of CCTV in Britain. And we have pioneered facial recognition CCTV in order that we can track the drug users and the people who are committing everything from low-level crime, so we can take people off the street. And we have been doing that, but we're part of a wider aspect of London, but it's the next part of our anti-crime measures. Then we have a very unique gangs unit. Now, in our first 6 months, it's funded, where we've got 15 specialists who deal with drug dealing gangs. Now, drug dealing gangs, county lines, as the police have called them, are a very well organised business setup. We got very upset that there were drug dealers on the corners of streets all over London, and we wanted to know what we could do to minimise that. In the first 3 months of the gangs unit being set up 3 years ago, it arrested 600 county lines gangs people. Now, you might be saying, where are those people in Hammersmith and Fulham? Well, they were everywhere. They were in Scotland, Cumbria, Northern Ireland. It showed what a sophisticated organised crime network that is. But these are 3 things that we're doing more. Now, if you look on our cabinet, what you'll see is tonight we're taking stronger measures to stop people wearing balaclavas, to limit harassment, and a series of other measures. And what we're also doing is we've introduced a women and girls strategy, which was one of the first in the country, that looks to prioritise the safety of women and girls, everything from stirring and harassment. And that's what we're doing. And I'm going to bring in Councillor Harvey to talk a little bit about that now.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. So our public space protection order is has been in place for quite a while now, and it is used where someone's being sexually harassed in the street or harassed. It isn't solely used, implemented when a let officer sees it happen. So we have had instances where people have been sexually harassed. They've reported it to the let team. There was actually an article in My London about it several months ago, where one woman reported it to the let team. They contacted her within 20 minutes, got the details from her of what happened, the time, the location, and they were able to use that information to track down the person that sexually harassed her. And that person then got a fine of £100, fixed penalty notice. When they tried to object to paying it, and we said to them, we have got the evidence, we can pass it on to the police if you need us to. They then admitted it was them and they paid the fine. And that's happened on numerous occasions. So it isn't simply a case that, you know, the let have to see it happening for it to be invoked. There are ways. We've got so many cameras across the borough that we can use to help. So we do take this really seriously. We've invested in the recent budget over 250,000 additional on top of the work we're already doing for violence against women and girls. And it's a huge priority for us to make sure our streets are safe. If there are particular areas in the borough that people are not, women and girls are not feeling safe, then I would definitely want to know, officers want to know, because we will go and we'll see how we can make it safer, because it is a huge priority.
Sure. Just in confidence, Sarah Barnes, my best friend from university, so I'm very keen for all women to be able to walk the street, being safe, but I think feeling safe. I think that's a real legacy of idea from Sarah, sport for all of us. What I would say on walking down the street, there's obviously harassment, which is sexual and criminal, but there's a lot of intersectionality between actually all the points Law has raised this evening. A lot of those things are interlinked. And if you're trying to, at the moment, as a woman, walk down the Oxbridge Road, you have, although she just mentioned there's 125 big signs outside, and you've got a lot of tables. What that means as a woman, you're pushed into male spaces. So you have all those things that stop your route because you cannot get from A to B because you've got a table selling books, then you've got furniture, and then you've got the licenses, then you've got someone harassing you, making you buy food. They're not, maybe there's a difference between impact and intentions. I'm not accusing anyone of intentionally harassing me, but the impact that it has on me, I cannot now no longer go to work without being up in front with males loitering around. And that is linked to the point of removing all these signs and furniture, because it's pushing women into very narrow spaces because of all the stuff. And so that's what I would describe as low-level harassment for me, how I feel. I'm not accusing anyone of deliberately harassing me, but by taking my space away, they're making me feel uncomfortable getting to and back from work. And when it's dark, it gets worse. So those are the things that I think could be quick wins for the council in removing stuff and clutter to help women feel like they can walk safely back and forward. Because how you feel when you've got your keys in your hand, and I think definitely, I know from personal experience, Sarah's murder was very much about people feeling that they got their keys in their hand near the street, and having a psychologically safe street would I think make women's lived experience better. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, just first of all, wolf whistling, calling out to women. Can you talk about what we're doing on that, please?
Yeah, so wolf whistling, cat calling, name calling, slurs, staring, all of that comes under our public space protection order, and we can issue fines to people that do that. Sorry?
No, Karen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we are taking action against people that do that. In addition to that, it's really important that we try to educate people. So we've done a lot of work with young people in schools and with our youth council, working very closely with the police so that we can ensure that sometimes people don't always recognise what they're doing is actually distressing and upsetting. So someone saying, all right, darling, well, you look nice. They might actually think they're giving you a compliment, and actually they're not giving you a compliment. It is awful. So educating people of all ages is a really important part. So our community safety team do a lot of work in that space. And we've got our Finance Against Women and Girls team. We've got the anti-social behaviour team. We've got various officers all over community safety doing work to support and educate people, as well as tackle the crime and antisocial behaviour. And then in addition to that, we work very closely with the police, and the police have been doing a lot of work as well, helping as part of that strategy.
Okay. All right. So on the notion of, I mean, I think we've got to stop the delivery motorbikes catcalling women when they're sitting waiting for their delivery to come through. So there's a lot of different things there. So that's why we passed the public protection order to make that an offence which we can fine. Now you might say, why are we fining it rather than having the police arrest people? I go back to my earlier point. The police are extremely stretched at the moment, so we've put our own people in charge of dealing with some of those things with the police, and indeed it's the CCTV that we have that allows us to catch people. It's worth noting that almost every successful prosecution in the criminal justice system at the moment is because of CCTV evidence. So it is a very important thing to have for those reasons. So in terms of dealing with crime, that's what we're doing, and it goes above and beyond. And as you can see, we're putting considerable amounts of our limited public resource into tackling crime. The resident at the back who talked about her friend, which again, all of us share the sorrow and horror of that. But she's quite right. There is the causes of crime and how people feel when they walk down a road. So if we move on to then the street enforcement of stuff. So Bram, can you talk about what we're doing on enforcement of people wrongly putting stuff on the street?
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Leader. I think you're referring to A-boards and things like that, which might be obstructing.
125 A-boards and an FOI shows not one has a licence, which each of them should have on the road.
Yeah, I suppose what's not obvious is sometimes the actual A-board is on a private forecourt, and the paving looks the same, because in the past we've probably just paved right up to the business premises. But then there's normally a part of the area in front of the shop that actually belongs to the shop. So they're probably entitled to actually put whatever they like in there. Sometimes they're putting the fruit and veg, or they're putting an A-board there. Where we find that they're encroaching on the pavement, we will ask them to move, and sometimes they move it back, but then it creeps back. Well, we do have a licensing scheme where it's safe to actually put an A-board. They can put an A-board, but most people, it's a continuous battle of us. Either it's on their private forecourt, or we actually take an enforcement action to actually get them to remove it, move it back, or remove it altogether. Yeah.
So just on that, are you saying how many of these A-boards are on private property and how many are on council property?
I haven't got the exact details of that, but a lot of the areas, the shops on Oxbridge Road have a private forecourt, and you see evidence of it because they're actually using that space to actually store their goods to sell. Yeah.
Can we then therefore agree tonight that can we do a survey which is on which? Yeah. Because I understand, because I've done that, there are many people who have the shop frontage, which might previous decades had a gate in front of it or a fence that gets removed. It looks like it's part of the public highway, and therefore they can put what they want onto that. And that's, in part what some people put chairs and tables outside, other people put other things out.
Can I interject a little bit on this?
Yeah.
Because I've not had a chance to speak for a little while, but what I'd say is that firstly, it comes back to what that resident just said there. It's about women, and it's about, people with special needs, or, on wheelchairs, or people who are pushing pushchairs, not being able to walk on the road comfortably. So it's not about whether, from our perspective, the technicality of, well, it's actually on a footpath, or it's, or it's on their private forecourt, to use your language. It's about the fact that those pavements are very narrow as they are. There are goods spilling out of them. There are, pound shops, fruit and veg shops. There I spend half my time walking on cycle lanes and putting myself at risk in doing so because I'm not comfortable with the level of, with the lack of personal space. All you have to do is to come to the road to see it. And we have told the Let team several times, we've tried to take photographs of how A-boards are there after trading hours. We've shown photos, because it's not just the fruit and veg shops, it's trolleys, it's rubbish, it's all of it combined being, you know, an unwalkable road. And under the Equality Act, you have a duty as a council to make sure that there's access, there's equal access. Now, if women don't feel that they can access that road, equally like their male counterparts, there's a problem. If someone who's disabled, and I've read you out a statement verbatim, doesn't feel they're able to walk the road, there's a problem. Action on Disability is a group that we're consulting, and they're interested in the work that we're doing. There is a problem here. It's not about saying it's a technicality and it's on private forecourt.
But are you saying that where someone has a private piece of land, we should enforce that?
I'm saying that you need to widen the pavements. That's actually what, you know, that's the 12-month plan. There are plenty of other councils who've done it. And I'm saying where you can't do it, then you need to find a way to make it more accessible for residents. It's not for me to, I can only point you out the problems and the suggestions, but it's for you as a council to take that forward.
Yeah, and quite reasonably, I can assure you that we are determined to make this an ever better borough, and Uxbridge Road is a very, very important road to us. And quite a lot of our cabinet live there, let alone our councillors. So we're very familiar with it. It's a very important road to us. But what I just understood you to have said is that if someone's got stuff on their own private land, you're asking us to enforce that. That's what you, I think, initially said, isn't it?
It depends on how narrow the road is. If it's a narrow road and it's not walkable, then yes.
And you're saying use the Equalities Act, and particularly with disability in mind, to do that, and the danger to women.
And gender, yeah.
Yeah. Look, as you said, you know, I don't expect you to have hired lawyers, but you would expect us to have to act under the law. Where we can enforce these things, where we can improve the public road, then we will do that. We are indeed always looking to improve the public realm, which is what we've done in different parts of it, of the borough, a lot of it in Shepherd's Bush and around Oxbridge Road. But if you're saying that, can we extend the pavements? I mean, I'm always in favour of that. I'm always in favour of more pedestrian space. Bram, do you want to come in? Can we have much greater walkway, which obviously means less space for cars?
Yeah.
Can we do that in Uxbridge Road? Can you look at that?
Definitely. We can definitely look at something like that. We will need to develop it. And obviously there's a challenge because there's so much demand on the road space. So something has to give. But if we're going to give more space to pedestrians and cyclists, and then we need to move forward a scheme on that. Yeah.
Yeah, you invested £2 million in North End Road, and part of that was widening pavements. So you have been able to do it in other areas of the borough. And Shepherd's Bush has several tube stations, several bus stops. It is very well connected. We don't need parking spaces on Oxbridge Road. That in itself is a way of being able to widen the pathway without detrimentally affecting cyclists or residents.
If you're in favour of doing that, we will very happily work with you on it. Because we have an aim of increasing active travel and improving the public realm.
Yeah, your 2030 strategy is all about making it easier for
yeah.
pedestrians to walk.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and promise you things I can't do. So that's why, if there's some legal reason we can't do something, I'll share that with you and ask you, do you have another insight? If there's something we can do, and we can look at widening the pavements, we're very in favour of that. We will definitely work with that. Work with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've already highlighted that which improvements you've done in the borough to widen pavements as well. And then within the pack, there are a list of other boroughs who have, there we go, Brent Council, Merton Council, Barnet Council, Dudley Council, and the Edinburgh Council have all successfully been able to widen their pavements as part of improvement to pedestrians.
See, to do the same, it's a contested space, by the way, because not all residents want roads harder for cars. So if you're saying you want more active travel, greater pavements, then that is something that fits with our strategy, as you've kindly read, and we will work with you on how to do that. Just so we can talk about the cost, because the way we tend to operate is always to work with residents and to try and get them to often lead the public consultation. because that's what we've done everywhere we've worked. So where you have residents saying, we want this to happen, we don't want to come in and impose something and then find a whole bunch of other residents are very cross at this. So if you're saying there's a consensus for extending the size of the pavements and doing something quite creative on that, we will work with you. Now, I just want to draw a line of a cost because it's extensive. You quoted the 2 million on North End Road. You know, I know we regularly look at doing this all different parts of the borough. We would be able to bring forward some type of scheme, but there are limits on the budgets and we would need to raise the money from other sources. And we will talk to you about that, but I can make a commitment now. We'd be very happy to work with you on extending.
I challenge that a little bit because, as I said in my speech, there was a 532 million. That's a budget that's been allocated for the next 4 years, 2025 to 2029, to spend on improvements to residents and businesses. I mean, 2 million or so is a tiny percentage of that. Plus, it's a 250 million pound borough, so the budget is there. If you want to allocate it, you know, the figures that you've given, for example, on CCTV, etc., none of that explains, which is in the cabinet papers, precisely how much is being allocated to Oxbridge Road. It talks about 2 million on CCTV. So what we're asking is put the 2 million to improve Oxbridge Road, and everything else is a domino effect. It will encourage more people to come. It will encourage discourage crime, discourage ASB. It all fits in with one another.
No one's against what you're saying, but I would just contest a little bit what you're saying about money. So our budget has been cut by over almost half since 2010 when austerity was introduced. And the way we found money is 3 ways. We've negotiated very firmly with property developers and used Section 106 money to do things. Like initially, that's how we funded the law enforcement team. We didn't take that from our revenue accounts. Secondly, we've cut out a record amount of waste. We inherited what we thought was an extremely old-fashioned and wasteful council, and we've introduced lots of modern techniques. So our budget now, we've taken out 138 million pounds in the time we've been in office in wasteful spending by just business process re-engineering the council. So that's the second way we get money. And the other way you can get for environmental measures is by by grants from national or regional government. So I can promise you this is a priority for us. If you're saying you want this to be more, to have more active travel, wider pavements, this fits exactly with our objectives, which you've read. But I am just saying that there is not a lot of money. Most of our money goes on adult and children's social care. So what you have, it's what most councils suffer from. If people meet me, they often ask me, why did I spend my time, you know, making sure we had refuse collected and the streets kept clean? That's what they think a councillor's job is. But actually, the bigger part of it, in terms of where the money goes, is on social policy. So there are lots of elderly people around who need home care, and they have all sorts of illnesses from dementia to other disabilities. We put a lot of care in that. It's where most of the money goes, is that. But the bigger part is on children's services, where if you're lucky enough to have carers or people who love you and bring you up properly, that's fine. But there are a lot of people who do terrible things to children. One child brought into our care can cost up to £1 million a year because of some of the terrible things that happen. Now, I would just say, when I first took on this job, I asked for a review of every single child in our care. And I had to go and sit in a quiet room after reading the case and hearing what happened to these children, because I found it so traumatizing. There's a lot of things going on which where the money goes. So when you say you've got all this money you can easily spend, there's a council going bankrupt every week in England at the moment after so many years of austerity. We don't have. What I can assure you is it is a huge priority for us in our highway strategy to increase active travel, to improve public realm, to make the place better, to attract private investment. And often with that combination, we can get things done. So I'm saying that you've heard from the strategic director, that's something we want to do. I'm saying we'll work with you on it, but there is no quick fix, but we will make sure there is a fix.
Yeah, I'm simply pointing to the 532 million. That's a very recent report that said that Hammersmith and Fulham have got this budget for the next 4 years to improve its experience for residents and for businesses. So I'm pointing to an existing budget that's been signed off.
And
I'm not asking you to divest money from children to Oxbridge Road.
But I'm saying we will definitely invest money in Uxbridge Road, and we would welcome. I'm not going to take too many questions because I can see everyone. So I think I'll take the resident at the back.
Son is disabled, a wheelchair user. We live in Devonport Road. Quite a lot of the time we can't cross the road just from one side of Devonport Road to the other, from one side of Warbeck to the other because of illegal parking and because there's a very limited drop curb that's always blocked, which means we can't actually get out of our street with a wheelchair. And I think there's a lot of clutter as well. And quite a lot of the shops don't have level access. It makes it a really miserable experience and something that he's very distressed by quite a lot of the time. And I don't think it's on in this day and age, and especially in Shepherd's Bush, not to be able to cross the road. And the lack of raised tables or drop curbs to be able to get from one side to the other of the road is also a big issue. There's also quite a lot of antisocial behaviour in bus stops, which means quite often we don't get to use the bus stop. We stand in the rain to try and access a bus. The clutter on the roads often means the buses can't stop for us to get the ramp out. So it's a really miserable experience from accessibility. And I think there are lots of little things that you could do, and particularly putting the raised tables in would make a big difference to us, and also controlling the illegal parking.
Well, thank you for that. I'm sorry that your son is distressed by that, and I can assure you we'll look at it. We will get your details at the end of the meeting and maybe talk about that specific case. I can tell you we are very interested in raised tables. And on disability more generally, one of the first things we did as an administration was to set up the Disabled People's Commission, who published the paper Nothing to Disabled People Without Disabled People. So almost everywhere that we look at public realm improvements, we involve the Disabled People's Commission. It's ingrained in everything we do. So I will engage them in this issue as well with you. And can I just bring in Councillor Ree on that matter?
Thank you very much. Sorry, Mum, I think we met a few months ago, didn't we? So the ward councillors in Conningham organised a public meeting to discuss Devonport Road and lots of the issues there. And I know you raised this very point at the meeting. So we have agreed to put in a much larger raised curb at the end of the road now, so it should be easier to cross. We've also really changed the parking restrictions there. I know I've had a lot of people come up to me since then saying it's had a positive impact on the road. Perhaps I could have a chat with you afterwards just to get your views and just see how your experience has been affected by that as well. Thank you very much for coming.
Is there anything else you'd want to say on that?
Also, again, the ad hoc way that in some way, just in generally improving the public realm and the decluttering, the sort of things that get left all over the place, and also the antisocial behaviour that forces you to not be able to use things like bus stops is a really big issue at the moment, because everyone seems to hang out in a bus stop except for people that need to use a bus stop. So
well, thank you for that. We have had extra patrols put into Oxbridge Road, which I asked for after your petition first surfaced. And indeed, when I was a bit surprised the first time I went down there to do an inspection that there were so many law enforcement officers there. So I've not told them I've done inspections since then. But that is something that's very important to us. Antisocial behaviour and crime is a key priority for this council. It's why we're spending so much money. It's why we've got a paper on it tonight. As was said earlier, it is a policing matter, crime and antisocial behaviour, but we recognise that it's extremely intimidating, particularly for women and particularly for children. And that's why we are keen to do everything possible and to put as much investment into it as we are doing. But over specific areas, we can put temporary CCTV in. We're looking tonight to put extra measures in, like talking CCTV and other measures that crack down on that. I'm sorry you have to go through that, but I absolutely assure you it's something we're determined to get right. I'm not saying we get it right every single time, but it is a key priority for us to get this right. And if you've got some feedback, then thank you. So in summary, we will look at extending the roads. We will, where we have powers, where it's on public highway, we will look to enforce. We are looking to enforce action where people have been using our public highway for their wares. Where it's their space, we will negotiate with them, and we will look to put the raised tables in. Is there anything else you want to say in that matter?
I mean, not for now, but it is everything that I've already covered. As in, I don't know if you're going to move on to shop fronts, the way they look, etc.
Shop fronts.
You want me to what more would you like me to say? I've said my piece already. I mean, shop fronts are an absolute disaster on the road. They're a complete eyesore. They're broken. The awnings are filthy. It's not, for someone you've said that Oxbridge Road is very important to this council. It doesn't show by that road. That road is completely neglected. The way it visually looks is embarrassing. You've heard from 2 different statements of people feeling embarrassed to invite friends over. I'm the 3rd person I'll add to that as well. Those are not my responses. I'm embarrassed to have anyone visit me and to go through this road. There has to be some significant improvements. We've seen Leighton Council spend 2 million to do a complete overhaul using Yankatainen. It took a year. We've seen Haringey, who funded 80% of a shopfront improvement and got businesses to fund 20%. So councils are doing things to improve that, and not necessarily at the business's cost only. You've spent money on on painting over these solid shutters that are not allowed to be there in the first place. For example, you did Hometown very recently. That shop has been there under a year. Those solid shutters are not allowed to be there in the first place, yet instead you're rubber stamping that non-compliance. You've got Turning Point, which is I think owned by the council, and again there's shutters there. You've got Sakina, which is in the guide, which if that's what we think is improving the streetscape, then we are not on the same page whatsoever.
Bram.
Thank you very much for that. There's a number of things that we're actually doing. As you know, we've commissioned well-known architects to actually do options in terms of what is the art of the possible in terms of shop fronts. And I think there was a meeting arranged or due to be arranged to actually take you through that. So that's one of the things. We're looking at a feasibility study for a business improvement district as well in the area, which will help to try and manage the businesses. My understanding of the solid shutters in terms of shop fronts is our advice is to advise against them. So we don't advise putting them in, but it's not unlawful at the present moment. But we can actually work with you to try and see what we can do to control shop fronts and negotiate with the businesses to improve the shop fronts and the shutters they're actually doing.
Yeah, just on that. So you're saying we have the powers to make a business take down its shop fronts?
You've done it for plenty of. You've done it for Tian Fu, which was on Wood Lane. You've done it for Askew Road. You've done it from Kensington Olympia, where you have prohibited it. You're not doing it on Uxbridge Road. Instead, you're painting over them. On the July the 2nd meeting with Councillor Florian, we specifically as a group said we do not want artwork on shutters. It's going to degrade the road further. It's going to be a complete eyesore. It's already too noisy as a road. And instead, you went ahead, you didn't listen to our concerns, and you painted over 6 and gloated about it in the cabinet papers. What I'm saying is spend that money, repurpose it, clean awnings. There's a 6K quote in the pack to do some of the awnings on the road. That's a first easy, from our perspective, quick win. We do not want any solid shutters being painted over. We want them removed.
Okay, Councillor Shivopi Verdier, do you want to come in on the awnings and the shutters?
Shutters are part of planning, I think, so that would be perhaps Andrew.
Do you want?
I don't. You mentioned about the shop fronts, yes, but I don't know what was the specific words that I don't remember that specifically.
Okay. Do you want to? So you're saying he ignored you, and that we've done the shutters anyway, and we have the powers to remove them. That's right. So I've understood you right. Is that right?
Yes, at that stage there had been. You mentioned, I've got the council pack here, that you were planning to paint over shutters. We as a group said we don't want that to happen. It's going to make the area look even more neglected and more run down. Please don't do this. And then you proceeded to do Snappy Snaps, Sakina, Zayton Zatar, and the list goes on there, you know, the Red Sea restaurant and now Hometown. So that's at least 5. And in your plan, you say we plan to do more if the businesses allow us to. We do not want a road full of coloured shutters. That's not what we're asking for. 54% of the road is full of solid shutters. The head of your enforcement has said he doesn't think he can remove them on the basis it aligns with the character of the road. That in itself tells us there's an issue.
Let me look into that again and come back to you on it. Do you have anything else you want to say on that, Brown?
Yeah, just to say, we're working with local artists and cultural partners to bring public art. So I'm assuming you still want the public art to take place, but not on shutters. That's what I'm saying, not on shutters. That's what you're asking.
What I understand is we don't have the power to tell the business to take shutters off. That's what I was advised. You're saying we do.
You do within the first 4 years is much easier. That's what we've been told by your head of enforcement.
I think we're confusing two. One is there is a piece of work that's done to actually work with public, local artists and cultural to actually improve and do some public art in the area. Where there is contention.
Sorry, Bram, can we just stick on the shutters?
Yeah.
Do we have the power to remove shutters?
We don't have powers to remove shutters, but what we do have powers to do is work with the businesses.
It said we've removed some in Gold Court Road.
No, I said you prevented them from happening in Kensington, Olympia, Wood Lane.
Preventing is a different issue.
And Tian Fu has had shutters down before when you enforced that. And you're inconsistent. You opened a claim for one of the shops on Oaklands Grove, which has had shutters in the last year. That's a recent claim you're now opening. But you're not doing it for the rest of the road, which also have solid shutters.
Yeah, but it's the same as what we said earlier, just to try and clarify. You're saying where people are opening new ones, we're taking claims out against them, but where there's established ones, we've left them there. Is that right?
I'm saying that when it's within the last 4 years, the council has the ability to remove the shutters far more easily. And there are plenty of shops. I've given the council an 11-page initial findings of solid shutters that have been there in the last 4 years. Cake Box, Hometown, which you painted over. The list goes on of Bright Optical.
And I don't want to get into each one. What I'm asking is, you're saying what I've understood you to be saying, which is what I'm asking our officials, is you're saying where their new ones are going in, we've taken action on some that you're aware of. Where there's established ones, you're saying we could have taken them if they've gone into 4 years, but the head of enforcement has chosen not to. And that's what I'm interested in. Is that your understanding, Bram, that it's a choice rather than a legal power?
No. Where the shutters are dilapidated and plan to take a view that they need to take enforcement action. We're taking enforcement action against 154 premises along Oxbridge Road. So there is enforcement action being proposed. There's a difference between dealing with existing shutters and preventing new ones of that type going in, and also dealing with ones which are not in a fit state. Yeah.
What are the 154 cases covering? How many cover solid shutters?
I'll need to check the details.
I'll tell you now, I know the details from, again, the head of enforcement. He said the majority are on satellite dishes and wiring. This petition goes far beyond satellite dishes and wiring.
But surely the crucial thing to do, which I think is something that we should surely be able to agree on, is where we have legal powers and we can use them, it's then a consideration, do we want to use them? And in most of the instances you've brought forward so far, we're on the same page. I'm not sure we are on this in this issue, but what the first point is to find out, do we have the legal powers? If I've understood you correctly, you're saying where there's been some new ones, we've forced people to remove them, but in other cases where there's established ones, we haven't removed them. And I'm saying to him,
sorry, that isn't what I'm saying, Councillor Cowan. What I'm saying is that there are plenty of shops on Oxbridge Road within the last 4 years that have metal solid shutters, and you have the power to remove them. And you haven't been. Instead, you've been painting over them.
I will look into that. I'm told we don't, but if you're right, then we can talk again. Thanks for that. Right, just on the other points you've got. you want to just run through some of the others? You mentioned the bridge.
Yeah, the bridge in the same July the 2nd meeting, you committed to procuring the artwork within 3 months. In your cabinet papers, you now commit to doing this by spring 26. That is a year after the petition to paint a bridge.
Right, Bram?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Firstly, the bridge is not ours, it's TfL's bridge. So we have to work with TfL to actually get their permission and then get them to do it with their agreement. They're very strict about that. We can try and accelerate it. We can try and use our influence to try and take that forward, but we haven't got the power to just go on their bridge and start painting it. So.
Ms. Al-Neem said that you promised that we would do that, and then we've broken the promise.
Apologies, I'm not aware of any promise that we made. We probably promised to work with TfL to see what we can do to make it happen, and that's what we've been doing. So
when can you just help us out? When did you promise? When did we promise that?
It's in your own slide deck on the 2nd of July. You've circulated, I mean, Councillor Florian, you should be able to get that. You've got a sign to say, in fact, I've copied it and put it in the deck, that you'll procure the artwork within three months, and that was July the 2nd.
Yeah.
Yeah, the procurement of the artworks is one thing, but then getting someone to actually do the works on somebody else's structure is a different thing. But we'll check the details of that. If something has been said, I apologise for that, but that wouldn't be the intention. But I think we would need to go through due process and get that permission from TfL.
Yeah, look, I think we do have to sort of look at where we agree, and it seems like we agree on an awful lot of stuff. We have to act within the law. Where we have powers, we will take them to the umpteenth degree. As the gentleman at the back asked, are we doing stuff on fast food joints? Yes, everywhere. Is that contested? Yes, almost always. Same with gambling shops. Where there are things that we might disagree, and we haven't come across too much yet, although I'm going to look more into the shutters and that, then we just have to say we disagree on it. But we haven't come across anything like that yet. But we are going to act where we have powers, and that's what we're looking to do. Right. What else have you got on your list that you wanted you'd like to go to now?
You promised to declutter the road. I know it's been briefly mentioned, but instead what happened is there was a change of tone. Suddenly we went 15 weeks ago to say we're going to declutter the road, and then it started to become repainting the street furniture. They're two very different things. We're expecting the road to be decluttered. The bike bollards, far too high, far too noisy. There are people that are just ripping them out and then parking there. Again, we've kind of touched upon that. We want much shorter, smarter road, a more aligned shop front. They're all different sizes, different heights. There's shops that shouldn't look the way they do in the conservation area. For example, Tim Gad. Again, that was allowed by the council. So what we're looking for is similar to the Leighton High Street improvements, which, as I said, was £2 million and took a year. You've had a Jan Katang report from 2024. We want to understand what are you doing to expedite those improvements, not about continued consultation and we're going to open this up. A lot of what we're asking for is restoration. It's not just about improving, it's restoration.
Yeah, no, look, firstly, we are legally obliged to consult, and that's what happens when you're doing something to the highway of the public, any aspect of the public realm, and it can take time. Secondly, the bike bollards are temporary bollards. They were put in order to create safer biking, safer cycling. They are temporary, and there is a plan for a much better design. But how much is that scheme?
Similar schemes on Wood Lane and things like that, probably costing about £13 million, gives you an idea, and so it just gives you a sense of scale.
So
13 million for bike bollards on Oxbridge Road.
No. The permanent schemes that you see written in to the landscape, with often landscaping, planting, other sorts of things, that cost a lot of money. The bike bollards don't cost much. They were a temporary scheme that we put in because our residents in that area wanted a cycleway. They're mostly TfL schemes, so it's a case of getting TfL in the to agree to do that with us. And where they do, we move quickly. Where they don't, it becomes harder. But we want to increase the level of active travel, particularly down Oxbridge Road. We think it has a real opportunity as a potentially beautiful road if we can significantly change the public realm. So we're on the same page as that, but it is expensive. And a length, the whole length of Oxbridge Road would be, I think the one we had on King Street and Hammersmith Road was about 20 million. So they are not, they are very expensive. But Uxbridge Road is one of them, which is why we put the temporary bike bollards in.
Yeah.
Look at the back.
Quick fix the use of the bus lanes, the bike lanes. It's to stop the cars parking in them. You can't even get into some of the bike lanes because there's cars parked there. Mark Fenneman's doing a great job, but we need a lot more wardens on there issuing tickets. It's the same cars parked there day in, day out. So just do that, and you know you're on the right road.
Yeah, no, I think that's. I mean, we are. That's right. And you're right. Mark Fenneman is doing a great job, and we have actually increased the level of of enforcement in that area, and that is something that I think is a paper we're bringing forward in one of his future cabinet papers. But we were talking about the look of the street, the public realm, and the wider issue there is we have a public realm improvement plan that includes more active travel, more planting, and Oxbridge Road, as one of our most important roads, is a priority for us. As I said, it's a road we care about very much and have put significant investment in recent years. Okay, Councillor Shavopi-Verdier, did you want to come in on that?
Well, thank you, Leader. Well, first of all, just to clear the air, there were aspects of policy that were discussed earlier that I don't control, so I just want to make sure that on those points that, however, on parking and highways, I am responsible for it. And thank you, Nigel, and I know Vicky and Councillor Schmidt, you've gone on a number of walkabouts now in the area to kind of look at the things such as the rate crossings, which for you, ma'am, I know are very important, that I'm really proud that we're delivering because it means a lot to me. I've worked with the Action on Disability for quite a while. On the parking elements, I can say that where our powers have been taken away by the previous government to enforce bad parking by camera, we're still looking to extend the bus lane where we can enforce by camera. So that's measures that we're looking at. Reforming the cycle lane, I agree with you, the bollards are not. But you heard us suggested earlier about but flower-shaped bollards, which equally people just take off. And so what we're doing instead is we're introducing a physical separation on the cycle lane in order to prevent people from actually getting on there and repainting the double yellow lines on both sides of the cycle lane in order to make camera enforcement by our CEOs crystal clear. We're also mindful that that can have an impact on businesses and their ability to load and offload from. So I don't want to badly penalise them. So we're looking to introduce loading bays on the road, as we've done on King Street in certain spaces, as well as temporary shopper bays, delivery bays, and loading bays on the side roads in order, again, to support the businesses, because I appreciate some of them do use it legitimately. Many of them don't, and many of their patrons don't either. But yes, you're right. That's some of the stuff that I know, Nigel, you're very invested in this. So thank you for all the work.
Okay. Anything on the bike lane or the bollards or anything on that?
Other, just to make sure that they're short when they are replaced permanently, so that again we're reducing clutter on the road.
So we don't want the pencil things because they get pulled out by people who then illegally park. What we want is to put a proper bicycle lane in with proper public works. But that is a much greater expense, and we've got bids in with TfL to do that. In the meantime, the idea of raised tables to sort of like increase the public attractiveness of that area is something that is a priority. And it's something that we've been talking about. But the level of money involved means that we have to make sure it's properly budgeted and targeted and the works are properly procured. So we are working on that, and we will share that with you going forward. Sorry, do you want to come? You can come back in if you want.
So why are you taking on the responsibility of painting it if it belongs to TfL? Why don't you, as a planning measure, ask them to paint it themselves?
It's a very good question. And the question, if we could get TfL to do a bit more, is a perennial one. We've had TfL, so TfL has its own program. It's their bridges. It's just like you said about the police being responsible for policing. They're their bridges, and they've painted a number in the borough that they have, and they've got their own program. So where that program is some years off, and we don't think that's good enough, we will often say we'll do it at our expense. Otherwise, we're waiting years, and that's why. If you're, that's very simply the reason. Say that again. for the it's the same reason if someone came around and painted my house and billed me, I might like it, I might not like it. It's the same aspect of the law. We need.
If it's neglected and they haven't upheld their duty to paint it, then surely after a certain amount of time, you compel them to. Or you do it
It's
yourself.
not wrong what you're saying. In some instances, for example, if graffiti is painted on things, we will often remove that, even though it's not our property, but it's, so there are instances where we do things like that. It's more challenging to do that in some other instances, and we don't have the power to do that. We need TfL to let us do it. I would much prefer if they did it with their money rather than our limited resources. But if we can't get them to commit, because they will say, sometimes we're talking to them about different issues, and they will say, this is in the programme for 2033. And you can imagine the frustration when you want something done within the next year, 6 months, 3 months. So sometimes what we do is step in and say, we will do it then. But then they will say, do it at your expense. And that's where we just can't bill them and make them pay the bill if they're saying, they're not going to do it yet because they've got this outside their budget. So you get into all of those complications. But if we want it done quickly, which we do, then it often means we've got to do it. I've got loads of people wanting to come in, but obviously this is not a public meeting. This is a cabinet meeting. Who wanted to say that?
You mentioned about the bike lane.
Yeah.
Good to hear your comments about 2033 for TfL painting the bridge. No, I won't quote you on that. Very encouraging to hear that you do feel committed to a cycle lane on Oxbridge Road for health reasons, for air quality, for safety, for a number of reasons, which would have a huge impact on changing the Oxbridge Road. Can you give us some sort of time frame and some sort of commitment to when this might happen? And will it be more than what's happened at the top end of Wood Lane, where it's a 50-yard stretch, which is segregated? Will it be a proper bike lane that is segregated?
Look, we're happy to work with you on this. Our aim is to begin to catch up with mainland Europe on the way they pursue active travel, including bike lanes. Now, that's a contested space. Not everyone agrees that we should be doing that. Some people argue that cars should be allowed to go everywhere, run down residential streets, etc. Other people say we should just have active travel. What I can assure you is we're very keen to get this in. Whenever we do these things, it's often with TfL money, as it is in Wood Lane, which is why we're opening it with TfL. That's where a lot of that £13 million has come from. So what we will do via your ward councillors and the responsible cabinet member is work with you. But I can promise you, if you want Uxbridge Road to look like the type of places you see in continental Europe, where there's wider pedestrian spaces, more active travel for cyclists, more planting, more planting, then that's the same page as we're on. And I will have the cabinet members and the officials work with you on that. That's what that's something we are absolutely determined to do. We think it's the way forward, and London needs to catch up with places like Paris and Ghent and other places where they've managed to make that type of progress. I'm aware we've got a lot to get through. There's a gentleman there who wants to. How does that?
Back to the architecture board. I feel like it would be really helpful for residents to hear just where the council is with that report. I think we're all crying out for something that's quite bold and quite unified in terms of a strategy for Uxbridge Road. Obviously, we talked about a lot of quick wins and A-boards and all the rest of it, but what we really want to know is there actually a plan that the council has commissioned, has scrutinised, and is planning on delivering? And I think that the closest we've heard to that is this mystery Jan Catane Architects report, but it's sort of buried in the cabinet papers. Is there a budget? Can we see it? At what point can we? I know it's been promised we'll be on a call with them for months now, and it hasn't materialised. So can you reassure us that this is something that actually the council has properly scrutinised and wants to take forward?
Yeah, sure. Bram, would you want to come in and update on where we are on the process of improving public realm in
Yeah.
particularly relevant to the architect's report.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Look, I think you're 100% right. It's really important that we have a clear vision for the road. And that is sometimes trying to get, whether it's cycling or whether it's actually changing wider pavements. What do we do as the bus stops? What do we do as deliveries, etc., as part of that process? And developing that, it goes hand in hand with the work that the architects are doing for the shop fronts. So when you blend them together, you end up with a clear vision. So developing a clear vision, in co-production with the residents and the businesses and all the other partners in the area is the way forward to try and deal with this. So.
He's asking where we are with the architect's report. Is there any budget committed yet? Where are we in the decision-making process?
No, all we've done, the architect's report was looking at options that could be considered in order to, what we can do to improve the shop fronts. We're happy to share those and discuss which options are preferred and how do we take them forward. So.
Yeah, I think what we have to do is several different things. We have to get an agreed plan, and we're not going to do it and just present it to residents. It has to be something that all residents of that area support and are excited by. We have to get the businesses involved and in part to fund it. And we're looking at setting up a business improvement district so that we can have a much wider conversation on what they think will benefit Oxbridge Road. Wherever we've got roads where there are a lot of shops we don't like, and we've discussed them, what we are trying to do is to talk to the landlords who actually rent those shops out. Because if you can get the landlords to agree that they can make better rents if we do X, Y, and Z, then it's much easier than us trying to enforce, especially when we do not have legal powers in many cases, as we talked about with the gambling shops. So that's the next stage, get the business improvement district, get the landlords on side, have the plan. And then when it comes to funding it, we're talking fairly large amounts of money. And that's where we also are in conversation with TfL and other funders about how we do that. Now, the bit that gives us the ability to sometimes raise more money is when we negotiate with property developers and we take what's called a Section 106 or a CCTV payment, and that sometimes gives us extra money. And because we're in West London and have higher land values, that sometimes gives us an extra advantage. And we have applied that to different things where we legally can, and including public realm works, the law enforcement team, the gangs unit, the CCTV, which other councils don't do, and therefore people aren't as safe. But we're fortunate enough to be able to do that and prioritize it. If you are willing to be part of a working group with the wider residents on Oxbridge Road that we think can allow us to bring forward a plan, then we would be very happy to share that with you and work with you on it. There are challenges, not least around the financing of it, but again, we will tell you about that and work with you on it and get stuff done incrementally as and when. Does that sound?
It sounds like, I guess that was answer the question. I think the thing that worries us is that we've just been through this whole petition process. I think we want to feel confident that there is someone on the council that is taking on this project. It's like, who is in charge of coordinating with the residents, running the process? We've got to get this Uxbridge Road kind of conference group together. We've got to be creating plans. They've got to be liaising with the residents on it. It's clear that it's going to take quite a serious amount of focus and coordination from someone or a group of people or a working group on the council, because otherwise what will happen is that the residents will feel like we're just whacking our heads against the wall. We've all got jobs, we've all got families, we've got stuff to do. We want to make sure that we have the confidence that someone is taking this and leading it, and not as we currently feel, which is that the road has been neglected over time and other areas have been prioritised, particularly when there's clearly going to be a requirement for a large sum of money to actually put this plan in place. So we want to know that that's being worked into the future council budget and that someone's championing that, and that basically the council's on our side here in transforming this road.
Well, I can promise you it is, and I can promise you it is one of my most favourite roads in the whole borough, and I don't live in the area. Quite a lot of the rest of the cabinet do, and a large number of our Labour group live in Shepherd's Bush and that area, and it's an extremely important area to us, which is why we put so much investment in recent years. So The architectural plan's quite advanced, but it needs testing. We want to have a business improvement district because you can't do things to them. You need to do things with them, not least because it's the easier way to get things done. And the wider issue of the public realm improvements, that is something that we're going to have to do right from the beginning with the residents. And that bit, you know, we've had a plan to put a cycle lane in. We want to make Oxbridge Road look a lot more like the roads you see in mainland Europe, but that does require widespread resident support. And we're happy to work through that at an evidence-based level, show you the facts, show you the legal issues, show you the financing. We pride ourselves in trying to get impossible things done. That's how we operate. So we don't like people telling us it can't be done. We always try and find a way to get something done. And if you're willing to work with us in that sort of open way, then that's how we work with a lot of residents all over the borough, and we'd happily do it with you and other people in that area. Okay.
Sorry, can I just build a little bit on that? Alex's point is that we have already offered to work with the council on this. Unfortunately, in the last few months, we've had 3 postponed meetings. We haven't had one meeting other than the July 2nd that's actually gone ahead. There's a 2024 Yankatine report, and what you've just explained is that there's a lot more work to do, but it sounds like 9 months later, we haven't moved any further forward, despite there being a petition, according to the Cabinet papers, after the Yankatine report was conceptualised and ideated. So you heard already that there is widespread resident support. None of the petitions before us have got the same level of support. You're not going to be able to survey every single resident in the area, but you've been told that the voice is very loud and clear. We want change. And you had that idea, according to what you're saying, before the petition was created. So why are we not much further forward, despite it being 9 months later?
I don't think that's right by any measure. We are, I think, quite a long way forward. We have started developing quite a comprehensive plan. You simply cannot decide to change a major thoroughfare that doesn't just affect the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, but the whole of where the Oxbridge Road leads to. It leads to Uxbridge, and it leads into central Shepherd's Bush, you know, without a considerable amount of work. So there has been a lot of work going on about it. We couldn't make the meeting last Monday, and given that was his cabinet meeting, and I hope you recognise that we haven't sat there and just not listened to you. There's some active listening going on here. This is, for all intents and purposes, you can see from the way I'm chairing the meeting, a public meeting, and it's 1 week later than the one we cancelled. And then out of that meeting, I've said to you, we will work on a lot of other different things. But to get stuff done sometimes very quickly when they are the scale that you're talking about it's not always easy, not least when it may cost a multi-million-pound programme. So starting the business improvement district is a means of raising extra money. Where we have them, and we've put them in different places in the borough, you get businesses to pay an extra part in the business rates. Now, there's a nervousness around that because I think business rates often kill high streets. And adding to the business rates can be difficult because sometimes the big businesses say yes, but the small ones struggle. So having a business improvement district that is a way of raising revenue to do some of the things we're talking about is one of the founding pieces of improving Oxbridge Road. The second part then is to have the architects and the planners do extensive public realm works. And that has started to be considered. There's been a huge amount of work on what might be an adjustment to the local plan, which would cover that northern part of Shepherd's Bush, including Oxbridge Road. So there's just a lot been going on. I accept you may not know all about it, which is why I'm saying follow this meeting, which is the cabinet meeting of the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, but we've run it as a public meeting. We will work with you and others in the area to put together a series of plans. And if people are willing to do that in good faith, you will find we are too.
Okay, yeah, my last question would be on timeframes, but if you think that will be covered on those discussions, then I'll take you in good faith on that.
Yeah, I think some things can get done quite quickly in some cases. Other things are can be painfully slow. And we will just have to go through with you on all of that, like any enterprise, and show how and what we're doing. And if we show you our workings, hopefully we can develop some trust that, as that gentleman said just now, he wants someone on your side, but we are genuinely on your side. But I can appreciate, not least in these times, that people often think politicians aren't on their side, do their own thing and ignore residents. That's not what we've ever done, and it's certainly not what we're doing here. Is you got anything else you'd like to add, Ms. Salneem?
No, nothing further.
Can I just ask, have you seen improvements over here over the last 10 years? What's that? And what's your view, Ms. Salneem? Do you think, I mean,
I've lived now in the area for 3 years.
For 3 years, right? Oh.
So I haven't, but I have lived in London for 9. It is by far the worst area I've lived in.
Right.
I don't feel safe walking down and up Oxbridge Road. There's nowhere for me to shop on it. I leave the borough to do anything really, and that in itself speaks volumes for me.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry you feel like that. We're aiming to make it the best place in London.
The residents, most of the people that shop on Oxbridge Road are from outside of the borough. There's nothing, they drive in, so it causes more problems. There is nothing on Oxbridge Road for the residents, the people that live in and around Oxbridge Road.
The survey of residents that we've done, only 16% that they said they use the Oxford Road frequently, as in every week. So it just feels to me, and to us, I think, that the Oxford Road isn't meeting the needs of residents. And I've lived here for 30 years. Right. As have some other people in our group. Sorry, I can't see. Other people in our group. And I'd say it's definitely got worse. I think other areas of the borough have definitely improved, like Askew Road, Shepherd's Bush Road, King Street in Hammersmith. And it's not just me saying that, it's people in the service as well.
So
Oxford Road just seems to go from bad to worse and to deteriorate further.
Okay, just on that then, what are the things that you would like to see coming into Uxbridge Road that you think we're not doing?
No consequences. No drugs on the street.
Abusing us as well.
You know, the bus stops, it's just, I mean, I have 3 teenage children. I regularly ask them to take an Uber home. They are of an age, my eldest is 18. I do not want her travelling home from netball on a Friday evening at sort of 8 o'clock, because I live in McFarlane Road in Shepherd's Bush. I mean, the whole thing, I've lived in this area for 21 years. The last, I would say, 3 years, I feel very unsafe walking from Shepherd's Bush station to my house. I do not like walking along the Uxbridge Road, neither the Goldhawk Road. And even, you know, sometimes actually in Hammersmith, it is really bad. It has gone so downhill. There's no improvement in 10 years.
All right.
Look, rickety shops where windows are full of all sorts of things, from garage blankets to plastic bags of water, toilet paper. It seems like a lot of shops have been converted into sort of mini marts. And what's more, in view of recent arrest of the manager of Damasgate, who was literally money laundering, stealing, I don't know what he was doing with £1 million.
Sorry, we're in a public, meeting. We can't. Yeah, we can't. No, we cannot defame somebody. And I certainly, if you could refrain from mentioning the name.
It's in the press.
I know, but I certainly do not want to find where.
There are a lot of shops that look very dodgy, that no one visits. When you say you don't have any powers, don't you have powers to tell them you can't have a window that looks like a mart in a third world country? There are a lot of these shops do not have any visitors, which is very suspicious. Have you worked with law enforcement to check if any of them are not more of the money laundering businesses? That it's very suspicious that no one ever goes there. They represent products that none of us would ever go and buy. And I honestly, I've lived here since 2008, and this street has deteriorated beyond any recognition. Also, another point was, this is already quite, by bringing more and more and more of the same type of businesses onto short stretch of the road, you have created absolutely enormous influx of people from outside the borough. People have no respect for parking rules. Recently, we had
residents-only parking introduced on Devonport Road. I unfortunately live close to the front of the Devonport Road where it meets Oxbridge Road. And every day when I come back from a hard day of working and running my business, I come back and I'm already full of anxiety. Will I even have a chance of finding a parking space? I even offload my car. You get abused every time, even if you're polite. Ask people who are Uber drivers coming to Baba Salam. There's sometimes 30 of them sitting there. So imagine 30 cars, all Ubers, occupying our street, do not pay because they can't pay anymore. They all, so many of them display disabled badges, which very often are fraudulent or used from somebody else in their family or the further family. So they're all used fraudulently. I mean, it's a curious number of disabled Uber drivers all parking on Devonport Road. If you even politely ask them to move, they immediately abuse you, especially if I'm a white European woman. They straight away go into, where's your man? Who taught you to talk to a man like this? Unbelievable, unacceptable. They do not think that the rules and regulations apply to them. They regularly park on a double yellow lines with the newly painted double dots, double perpendicular lines on the corner. They don't think it applies to them either. I mean, the other day I literally witnessed a van that parked across Devonport Road, loading and offloading to the Damas Gate. 2 cars were trying to enter. They couldn't. They said something and he was like this. So it's the culture of the people that are being brought here. They don't observe the rules and they abuse us. And this all humongous influx of people from outside the borough has been attracted by the type of businesses that you as councillors allowed to spring up. Businesses that do not keep up with what we need in 21st century London.
I'm going to stop. Thank you very much. Wind up the meetings. Anybody else wants to say anything from the residents?
I'll just want to add, because I didn't say this before, I'm a Middle Eastern Muslim woman. I am someone who moved to the area being excited about the Middle Eastern offering. And I am insulted actually at the way that the council continues to use the word diversity, almost weaponizing it as a way to justify the neglect and rundownness of this road. As we've said, there are 14 money exchange shops, 15 2-in-1 shops, £7 shops, 37 groceries. You've got the point. The overclustering has to stop. There needs to be shops for residents to live in. The standards need to raise for existing shops, and that will allow all ethnicities to be happy here.
Okay, look, thanks. Look, I'm just going to, can I remind everyone, everyone is on YouTube. So, sir.
You said that the road was finest streets in the borough. I can only assume that you've not been down Oxbridge Road recently, so I'd like to invite you to come to a walk with me and we can point out what's wrong with it. If you'd like to come along, you'd be welcome.
So firstly, I'm down Oxbridge Road every week. I love Oxbridge Road. I think it's a great road. I can see it's got challenges. Lots of roads in London have challenges, and there are certainly those. And there is a continuous a dialogue on what we're going to do on that, and there is a series of actions that we're taking to improve that, and we've said all of that. I'm not going to take any more questions or comments. I'm just going to sum up now, and then we're going to move on to the next items. What I would say is, you know, Uxbridge Road has definite challenges, and we've talked about how we will work with you to remedy them. We'll talk about the quick wins we can try and do, and we've also talked about the more substantial challenges, not least the multi-million pounds we need to raise to do some of the more substantial public realm works. So we will do all of those things, and you will work with your ward councillors, and we'll see how that goes. Since we got into office, because Uxbridge Road was in a weakened position when we got in, there was even the refuse collection was weighted to the south of the borough, and there was very little going on in the north of the borough. The first thing we did was to significantly increase the basic stuff that kept it clean. Now, I know people are upset about the crime stuff, but that is not the council's primary responsibility. It is the police and other agencies who do crime, as you kindly pointed out. But we have gone above and beyond, and there is a paper on here tonight which will cost millions of pounds of extra activity to make it safer. I'm sorry if anyone is a victim of crime, particularly if they're a woman, a disabled person, a young person, and all the other people. And I'm equally upset if anyone feels frightened when they walk in any of our public realm. They are both problems that blight lives and are unacceptable. That said, we will continue, as you see with the document tonight, to go after crime and antisocial behaviour, but more importantly, to tackle the causes, and that means improving the public realm. Anyone who thinks we have the power to move a private business out, we just don't. In a free, democratic society governed by the rule of law, those people who set up legal businesses have a right to be there. Now, we may dislike them, and in many cases, we share some of the concerns that you have with many of those businesses. We have often taken legal action and will continue to do so. And I know none of you are lawyers, and I don't expect you by any measure to have taken your own legal advice. But I would ask you, when you work with us, and we will get the best King's counsels and the best lawyers in each case, to look at the fact that we will act in each of those cases. But we simply can't turn up and tell a business we don't like them, they can move out. We might be able to say to their landlord that we think they could make better money if they worked with us to get different tenants. And that is something that, as you heard, we are already doing. And that's a much different job than being able to tell a business to move out. So we will act to improve all of those different things. Over the last 10 years, we have managed to encourage a lot of investment. And I think I was misquoted from that meme that you did, because I wasn't saying it's one of the finest boroughs of streets everywhere. I think it is a fine street, but I think it's got its challenges. And I think that was out of context. And, in the time that we've been in administration, we've seen lots of investment coming in, not least by bringing in what we're doing with Imperial in the north of the borough. Now, you might say that's a long way away, but actually, what you have in bringing in an investment like that is a much different type of client space. You have people coming who want to go out and shop and eat in restaurants and eat in cafes. And by doing that, £6 billion worth of investment, which is more than all the rest of West London put together. We have more startups than anywhere else in the United Kingdom, and we have the fastest rate of economic growth in London. So we are seeking to bring investment, and that's why you see the Dorset Hotel, the Hoxton Hotel, the Hawthorne Pub, all opening up. Meanwhile, in Shepherd's Bush Market, where we inherited a scheme that was on the floor, we saved the Bush Theatre with £1 million investment, and we give them a significant amount of funding. And along with U Capital, we'll see a complete transformation of Shepherd's Bush Market. Now, that's U Capital's money. It's not our money, but we have facilitated that by working with these people. So attracting investment is a crucial part of what we're trying to do to improve the character of the street. And where we have powers, we will act, and I can assure you of that. I'm sorry you feel we haven't listened. I promise you we'll work harder on that. And you have a lot of ward councillors who live in the area and will work with you on these things. And all I would ask is, if we work together in good faith and we try and attract investment together, and we try and work through the challenging issues together, we'll get some stuff done. And that's how we've acted before. Everything that happened in North End Road was because Ben Coleman, the councillor for that area, put together a huge group of people and built a huge consensus in what has been a space where we weren't able to do anything. And if we can do that together, we'll get stuff done. So I hope we can move forward on that basis. I thank all of you for coming tonight, and I look forward to working with you via our administration in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you again, and safe home. I now move that the petition is noted, and I now move that the petition is noted, and that we move on to the next item. Item number 5: CCTV and artificial intelligence, new innovations and improved infrastructure to help combat crime and antisocial behaviour. Okay, we're going to wait 5 minutes. If you want to stay and hear this next item, it's on CCTV and using artificial intelligence. What? You're here for playgrounds. Okay. All right. Sorry. Everyone's left it. Do you want to say something? Right, everything's left. We now have the next item, which is looking to up our considerable investment in crime fighting and take a series of measures. This council, I'm proud, is pioneering the use of artificial intelligence to identify and recognise people who have committed crime or antisocial behaviour to a greater degree. As we know, the criminal justice system is broken. It has been broken for a long time. It's one of the many consequences of austerity. And as a consequence, it is extremely difficult at times for the courts to get people taken through the courts. Having better evidence, having evidence that goes above and beyond is just one of the things that we are aiming to do. Secondly, I take the view that anyone wearing a balaclava on a sunny day should at least be stopped and questioned. If that is controversial, then I make no apology. We are determined to crack down on crime at every point. And whilst, as the last petitioner said, crime is the responsibility of other agencies, this council is not just a council. It is elected representatives who have a contract with their residents, and that contract is about delivering on their needs. As we have just heard, there are many people feeling frightened and many people experiencing crime. It is unacceptable that happens to our residents. This paper seeks to take our fight against crime and antisocial behaviour to a higher level, and I would ask you to support the paper. Is there anything you would like to add, Councillor Harvey? Much. Are any questions from the Cabinet on this? Any questions from anybody else?
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. My first question, thank you for the report. I think a package of measures the Conservatives will support. My first question, on the AI cameras, the budget, the funds for the AI cameras, is that for new cameras only, or will AI be applied to the existing 2,000 CCTV network?
Yeah, so it's going to be looking at, and I think you'll find it's actually in the report, but it will be looking at replacing some cameras and adding in new cameras.
Thank you for the clarification. I do have a further question. The current CCTV network, at any one time, how many people are watching?
That's the point. It varies. So what you have is the most extensive CCTV network in the United Kingdom, and we have any one time you have a variance between a handful and a lot more. Not all of the officers are Hammersmith and Fulham, although most of them are. Some of them police officers, and we share with other agencies. I think the whole point of artificial intelligence is there's a limit on the human resource. So where you have people watching and you have what we employ is called super recognizers along with the police. So a super recognizer can see just the corner of your eye and recognize that it's Councillor Jose Alfonso, whereas, other people wouldn't. So that's expensive. There's a lot of them. What the artificial intelligence does is it does that for us. And that's why it's such a useful investment, because it increases our ability to look at the CCTV.
Thank you.
Okay, in that case, can I just stress that, both, I know the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea was very grateful to us for the CCTV operation we ran on Notting Hill Carnival. I know Westminster City Council are extremely grateful to us now that we've let them use our CCTV operation. One of the strengths of this CCTV operation, and indeed our wider measures to tackle crime, is that other people want to learn from us. But I would stress to everyone in the Cabinet, we can always learn from others. And that's why I know we're scanning what is happening, not just here in the United Kingdom, but around the world about the fight for crime. I also want to stress that the fight against organised crime has become more sophisticated than ever before. It is totally international, and its victims are often the most vulnerable people in our community. Therefore, prevention of risk of crime, particularly protecting children at risk of being groomed into crime, has been a key part of our operation. Our children's services are outstanding for a reason, because we prioritised that service as a means of making sure that no child should ever find themselves press-ganged into criminal activity. And I don't want this just to be about the crime, it's also about protecting before that. Prior to that, I want to make the broader point. The causes of crime are everywhere, whether it is a lack of facilities for people to go to, or whether it is indeed low-level graffiti and broken windows not being tackled. Whilst that is always a challenge to us, it is a priority that we have adopted the broken windows theory to stop those instances where people might think an area is unkempt. That's why we will remove graffiti from private property, and it's why we will go to great lengths to improve the public realm. I am grateful to the previous petitioners for raising this issue. It is something that is very close to our heart. If there's nothing else on this, I don't know if any other councillor wants to come in on this. I will close the item. Councillor Chavot-Berdier.
I'm sorry, maybe just as the tech enthusiast in chief in the team, is to commend the paper for its approach to AI governance as well, because fighting crime also can mean that we don't fall into this Black Mirror dystopian future. So the AI Ethics Board involvement ensures that our officers and our experts, data protection officers as well, are involved in ensuring that this is a system that works for all residents and respect their private lives. I've worked in identity recognition for years and years. It's a very smart paper.
Paper agree? That's wrong. I move on then to the next paper, introduction of new public space protection order to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour. Councillor Harvey.
Leader, this paper is introducing a public space protection order to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour, which we know is very distressing for residents, and we ought to do all we can to try and make our residents' lives feel happier and safer and kinder in our borough. We already have a borough-wide public space protection order to stop street sexual harassment, and I referred to it earlier during the petition discussion. This new public space protection order will look at introducing some key changes across the borough to, firstly, it will be going out for consultation, and it's out at the moment to hear residents' feedback, but we'll be looking to restrict professional beggars and aggressive and persistent begging, groups of 2 or more people congregating to cause antisocial behaviour and loitering, and also looking to ban face coverings that conceal identity to cause alarm, distress, or other antisocial behaviour to residents in the borough. In addition to those elements, there's also a communications campaign where we plan to work with Fearless and Crime Stoppers so that we can encourage and help residents feel confident to report crime where it happens. The purpose of this being to really tackle antisocial behaviour and make our borough a safer borough.
Okay, anyone else on that? Any questions on that? No. In that case, I stress that this is an extremely important paper. We just heard from residents tonight what we've been saying for a long time, which is too many people are hassled and not always is it reported. And our job is to try and preempt those problems. I commend you, Councillor Harvey, on the fine work you've done to take this a stage further. I think we are in the vanguard of pushing on this. It is extremely challenging, but I know you're building on a strong foundation because of the work of Councillor Sue Fenimore, who really pioneered a lot of the work, particularly in the Shepherd's Bush area, on this particular challenge. So congratulations on that, and thank you for bringing this paper forward. Are there any, if there's no other questions, is that item agreed? Thanks very much. Transformational playgrounds. Would you like to come and sit at our table? Are you a resident or an officer or what? Oh, good.
Been engaging you and yours for the last 2 years
Ah.
on play spaces.
Good.
That's a big
Good.
movement.
Good. Thank you. All right. I have the power to invite you to speak, so I will call you in a minute. But first of all, Councillor Shivapverdia Anime, could you please talk about what the basis of this was?
Thank you. I don't blame you, Councillor Sanderson, and I do look alike, so it's sometimes we get mixed up. The Parks Transformation Programme is a paper that comes to Cabinet right after the Parks Improvement Programme, which was a £1.1 million programme to improve our parks. This is an £8.3 million programme to improve one of our many, many parks, of which I'm told there are 95 across the borough. I'm very grateful to our housing colleagues as well, who've been very hard at work to ensure that that improvement effort is distributed evenly across the borough, not just in the playgrounds that are located in parks, but also the playgrounds that are located across our housing. I'm very sensitive to intergenerational playground, accessible playground that works for all. So wanting to involve residents in what they want us to deliver in their parks is also a key focus, and I'm willing to take any questions or suggestions.
Thank you, Leader. So, yeah, I mean, a colleague has really said it all. I mean, essentially, we want to make sure that there are playgrounds and play areas for children to be able to grow, develop, and enjoy, right? And so this paper is very much highlighting that £8.3 million worth of investment over the next few years in play areas, in our parks, in housing estates, to really offer that valuable and vital opportunity to enrich children's and adults' lives. My thanks to you and other residents who have also contacted me about this. So it's a real honour to be able to talk about this paper today and the changes and the differences that it will make, and as part of the continued work that this administration is seeking to do to invest in the local area, invest in children and families in general. So thank you, Leader.
Okay, and now we found out you don't like our paper. Or do you like it? Or is there some bits you don't like?
Thank you. My name is Clementine Wallop. I live on Darling Road. For the last 2 years, I have been asking you to improve play provision across the borough. I started doing this work because I was leaving the borough, similar to the previous petitioners, in order to access better playgrounds. And I would go to K&C because they spend so much money on play. They have beautiful playgrounds. And I thought, not only is this about my children, the play spaces they have, there's an economic story here as well. You talk about yourselves as a council that cares about small business, that cares about independent cafe owners. And I was taking my money up to K&C and spending it there, or taking it across to Ealing, because the playgrounds here were old. They're older than me, and I'm 41. They're badly maintained. They're dangerous. You have in Normand Park a sand pit with needles and broken glass in it. You have people dealing drugs on Shepherd's Bush Green. These are not adequate play spaces. They're so far from excellent play spaces. And then I would read your rhetoric. Oh, we want this to be the best place in Europe to grow up. And I'd be standing next to a swing that had been burned out. Your paper is answering that. Thank you very, very much. And the difference that this makes to children's mental health, to children's physical health, to maternal mental health is enormous. So thank you very, very much indeed. And this is a joyful and brilliant thing to be doing.
Well, look, Cecily, I can only apologise that it took so, that it, that you had those experiences. We certainly came into office with a view to restore the play services that we had all over the borough. So that was our initial plan. And then it's interesting when you listen to residents, we were canvassing in Councillor Ume's by-election. What year was that? And
sorry, Councillor, what's your ward?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have proper play provision problems up there.
Yeah. So and several residents said to me, several residents said to us, we would like improved play conditions, and we put together, it was very difficult getting the money, but we put together the money, and we're going to put a lot more in the future as well. We absolutely agree with everything you said. Children should have the best possible play facilities. It should be a joy moment in the child, but also their parents' life. And so that's why we found this extra money. But this is the start. We think this should be the very best. And it does fit with our rider issue to do other types of things with children as they get older. So we've got other measures we're thinking, like I mentioned our industrial strategy earlier. We've taken the view, it's sort of, it takes a village to raise a child sort of ethos. We've talked to lots of different businesses and said, could you create pathway bonds so you would help bring up the children to different businesses? And we'll be announcing what that is again soon to give people some access into those things. But we think learning through play and just play for the sheer joy of life is an important thing. And that's what's behind this paper. But I want to stress it's just the start. And in the coming years, we're going to be putting a lot more investment to put very, very good play facilities all over the borough. And if we end up closing a road in some parts and turning it into a park, then that we are straight away looking to put play facilities in there so kids can play on swings and slides and other types of things. That said, we're also looking for play facilities for adults. So we want to put public chessboards and all sorts of other facilities that we think give people a chance to come together. So whilst we see play predominantly as children, we think you can be a child for much longer if we allow you to mix and hang out with other sorts of people, such as the chessboards I mentioned and other facilities. So it's the start of something much bigger. And if you've been campaigning about this, I'd just like to thank you for it, because it is a very, very important piece of paperwork.
Thank you very much. When I started the campaign, people were saying, are you planning to fundraise? I said, no, because this isn't private citizens' job. This is council's job. This is essential infrastructure. It's yours to get right. My goal was to put this higher up the council's agenda. And what you're saying today is play is really high on the council agenda. So this is hopefully a success all round. And every parent knows which boroughs prioritise play. Like I can tell you off the top of my head, it's RBKC, Tower Hamlets, Hackney. And now we get to be on that list. And the idea that people would get on a bus and come to Hammersmith and Fulham because we have the best playgrounds, that's really exciting. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do. And I'm hoping that I can join the Play Forum as well. Lovely, we'll be in touch.
That'd be great. Yeah, if you do that, we would welcome your insights. Councillor Corn.
Thank you. Firstly, can I just say that it's really great to be back in person after enforced leave for the last few months. I just want to say from my point of view, improving play is obviously a public health issue for adults as well as children. Having healthy, fit children in an area, I think, contributes overall to everyone. In my previous cabinet role, which was civic engagement, we actually did quite a lot of work And I think, you know, our officers and my colleagues need to be commended for the work we do actually bringing in private investment into improving our green spaces. So there's some excellent work going on, working with some of football clubs, some of the big companies around the innovation district and so on, because they also, although their employees aren't residents, they come into work, so they spend a good chunk of their day there. Whilst we are committing council fund and it's high up on our priority, we're also trying to squeeze as much as we can from the private sector to do that, because obviously there's only so much that we can make our budget stretch. So I think the work, it will be good to see some of that highlighted in our public papers in the sort of next tranche of, you know, projects being unleashed. Thank you.
Brilliant. And again, thank you for your contribution to our civic life. And I'm glad we've been able to do this. And as I said, our initial program was to refurbish all the swings and play stuff. And now our next program is to extend it and improve it. So
Brilliant. I'd like to give a lot of credit and thanks to Simon and the Parks Department as well.
Oh, really?
I know that he's left now, but play was really at the heart of the work he wanted to do in parks, and talking to him and dealing with him, there was a real sense of understanding and collaboration. And I think that's the ideal kind of relationship that as a resident you can hope to have with your local authority.
Okay. Well, look, thanks very much. I really appreciate that. And it's very nice you spend all evening here. Thank you. On that note, is this item agreed? Agreed. Item 8, Youth Justice Plan. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you very much, and I'll be brief because I'm mindful of the guillotine at 10:08. Our Youth Justice Plan sets out how we'll keep young people safe, reduce reoffending and support rehabilitation. H&F continues to lead nationally with outstanding ratings from Ofsted and HMIP. We've seen huge success with programmes like Turnaround, with 94% of participants not reoffending. But like everywhere, we face challenges. This plan tackles those head-on with targeted prevention, identity work, restorative justice, and strong partnership with health, police, and schools. It's about giving every child the chance to thrive and reach their full potential, living happy, healthy lives. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Is that case, that item agreed? Thanks very much. And then we move on to the annual review of housing safety compliance. Councillor Umey.
Thank you, Leader. So this annual report outlines the Council's housing safety compliance performance from the previous financial year, 1st of April 2024 to the end of March 25. So it really highlights strong delivery across 6 core compliance areas: gas, electrical safety, lifts, fire, water and asbestos, with 5 of these areas achieving 100% compliance and 1 achieving 97 plus. There have also been independent audits by Mazars which confirm satisfactory or substantial assurance across key safety domains. I think the report also highlights that the Council continues to invest £1.4 million weekly in safety infrastructure and upkeep and repairs and maintenance, and remains committed to implementing Grenfell Quarry recommendations. Overall, the service continues to demonstrate robust assurance, transparency and continuous improvement, with resident engagement at the heart.
That's very. Any questions? Councillor Alford.
Keep this very brief. I'm delighted to see this. Of course, I raised at the PAC my concerns that we're only 97% on electrical. Now, I do understand that it's changed from a 10-year to a 5-year, but I will hold you very hard that we get it to 100% because it is so important.
Yep, I completely agree with that.
Yeah. I was just going to thank you, Leader. I mean, obviously, the other areas of compliance will really highlight that commitment and dedication to ensuring safety. And as you've said, it's moved from a 10-year to a 5-year programme. And even with the results that you can see there, there is that commitment and ambition to ensure that the 100% target is achieved. I think the last rating was at 97.5% in the report. So, yeah, we'll continue to strive for the 100%.
And we are consulting on the tenancy agreement to ensure that we get access always and that no one can refuse us access. As you know, there was a fire because of Whirlwind's products in Shepherd's Bush some time ago, which is why we have Fire Safety Plus, but where we replaced all white goods at our expense because of a risk of wider fire. And then secondly, we're very concerned about lithium batteries in illegal scooters. And so in both of those instances, we're tightening the tenancy agreement to make sure we are not putting anyone else at risk. But there are, as we heard earlier, often legal challenges, and we're making sure we do this on safe legal grounds. Thank you for your question. Say, Councillor, mate, you were doing a remarkably good job. We inherited a terrible housing service. The pandemic made it worse, and yet the turnaround in the numbers is fantastic. And this is one of those many indicators. So please pass on my regards and deepest thanks on behalf of everyone in the administration to your officers. I know you've got a new team of senior officers who are very dedicated as us, to making this the best place to be in Council House in the country. And they have had a tremendous amount of stress with what they've had to work through, and they're doing a great job. So please pass it on to Richard Sway and his colleagues. Our very clear thanks, and this is one of those indications there. Okay, is that item agreed? Agreed. Can we move then to the revenue outturn report, where we bring in our very own Councillor Ree?
Thank you very much. So this is the outturn report for our revenue budget for the last financial year. And I'm delighted to say that the council finished the financial year with a £400,000 budget surplus. So at a time when most councils are taking money out of their reserves in order to balance the books, we are actually putting money back in. This is the third surplus we've had in 3 years. And over that time, we've added a combined £1 million to our reserves. That's only possible because of the ruthless financial efficiency approach that this council has taken. And it's a testament to the hard work of all of the officers and all of the cabinet members who are managing their budgets so prudently. I know that Councillor Alford is always very keen to hold me to account on the HRA as well, so I'm delighted to say that we've got an underspend of nearly £500,000 within the year on that. That money also goes back into reserves for a rainy day after money's been taken out in the past. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Is that item agreed? Oh, Councillor Alford, sorry.
And just to say how glad I am that you're making progress with the HRA. And if we get as far as the end item about the HRA, I do have a question, but
let's keep it, because we are up against the guillotine, so I'm keen to, but thank you again for your raising that point. Okay, in that case, is that item agreed? Agreed. Next item then, and again, it's item number 11 with you, Rowan.
Thank you very much. So this is the capital outturn report for the previous financial year. Across the year, we spent just over £235 million on all sorts of projects that make the borough better, whether that's improving the housings we just heard about in the previous report, whether it's keeping our public realm in good order, or whether it's maintaining our leading CCTV network. It's a comprehensive capital programme, and I'm delighted that we've been able to spend so much of it over the course of the year.
Okay, item agreed. Okay. Item 12.
Yes, item 12 is, I understand, the Treasury Management Strategy. So over the course of the year, we have been able to meet all of our prudential indicators and stayed within our Treasury limits. Over the year as well, we had the second and third tranche of the Hammersmith and Fulham green investment, which raised over £1.5 million for local climate projects.
Excellent. Any questions on that? Is that agreed? In which case we move on to item 13, companies update. Councillor Ree, it's still with you.
Yes, thank you very much. So this is one of the regular companies updates that we take to Cabinet. This used to come to the Commercial Revenue Board until that was abolished. Council currently has 3 active limited companies and is part of 2 joint ventures. These are all progressing as intended.
Okay, thank you. And the item that Councillor Alford's been looking forward to, item 14.
Item 14 is our month 2 revenue budget monitoring report for the current financial year. So these are figures as of May. The report is for noting spends and any movements in spending since the budget was set back in February.
Question.
Yeah, a couple of comments, and I'll try and keep it very brief. Right, well, I'll do it as fast as I can. Obviously, we all have concerns about the higher number of people in bed and breakfast, as it seems to be rising rather exponentially. And I hope that I'm sure Councillor Rees will be doing his utmost to make sure that we don't go too excitingly on this, because it is important. I mean, it's a very disturbing area with this high rise. I'm just raising that as a concern, and hope that matters are being sort of taken to try and stop it getting so many people going into so many clients. Is what action are being taken?
Yeah, Councillor.
Yeah, absolutely. So Councillor Ume may want to come in on this as well. So we're currently undergoing a big transformation project within the Housing Solutions team. So this is the sort of the front door for people who are coming into the service who so often end up getting put into bed and breakfast as a temporary solution. We also have, you might remember a couple of months ago, we set up the housing company. So this is going to give us a lot more flexibility in terms of going out and procuring additional properties that will add to our housing list and give us a lot more capacity.
Going to be quick. I mean, I do think we all share the concern of people being in bed and breakfast as opposed to being much more settled accommodation, and that does worry me, particularly the impact on children. So,
well, look, you know, let me just conclude because we are up against the time. But I understand what you're saying. I would say, because people often say this isn't political, I think this is a political problem. It's you know, it is a ridiculous scenario our society has got into, that affordable housing is now not affordable unless for most people. It's a crisis I accept is shared around the world, but it is a bizarre situation that in the private rented sector you have three groups of people. You have people who could pay their rent at their own salaries, people who are having their rent paid by the state, and people in the criminal side who are often in slavery and stuff like that. And in each of those cases, we don't know who is in what section. In that latter section, we don't know if it's 5% or 40% of the marketplace. It's a shocking situation. And it is a sign that we got into the wrong ideological position some years ago when people started saying we don't need social housing, we don't need that part of the social contract. And there are specific issues in London, but the fact that councils have gone bankrupt over this, and you've seen our report, we're not going to go bankrupt, it tells you the level of the financial problem it's putting on the council, but the human problem of children growing up being moved from private rented sector house to private rented sector house, sometimes miles away from their schools because their landlords tried to evict them. These are atrocious things, and I'm glad our government has introduced a bill that stops that happening in the Renters Reform Acts. But actually what we need is significantly more housing, and this is a problem that our society has failed to grapple pretty much since the 1980s. And it would be good if there could be a social contract, because I'll tell you something, unless the mainstream parties can have a view on how we fix this problem, you give in to the extremists who will come out with completely different solutions. So you're right to raise those things, but I think to a degree we're in a dreadful state, much because of the last Conservative government's approach, which I do think was, you know, disgraceful on that, and except it's more than that, but it was particularly bad, and trying to fix it now is particularly hard. Anyway, I know you come from a good place on that. I'm going to close down the meeting, so I'm not having a go at you personally. Now I'm going to close it down because we're going to be guillotined otherwise. Let me quickly have a look at the time. Okay, go on. Go on.
That's compensation, because that still seems to be getting high claims. And that's just, I will raise that, as you know, my views on that as well.
Sorry, could you just repeat? Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we've made it as easy as possible for people to make complaints, which is why you see a spike in us paying out these things. Yeah, this is something we expect to go back down to regular levels. We have, yes.
The ambulance chasers are parasites, and you know, we took the view to try and look out for. We actually wrote to people and asked them to send us the criticisms, because we were aware when we got the stock, when we got out of the contract in 2019 that had been signed in 2013, that was an awful lot of housing stock that we didn't know much about, because that was the duty of the contractor. And when we got to grips with it, we found lots of it were damp and mold and all sorts of other problems that have since become public information. Turning that around meant we could either react to the problems or we could ask people to tell us about problems, and we deliberately sought, knowing it would be challenging, to get extra complaints, because that's how we dealt with them. The fact that we now have significant improvements for damp and mold, significant improvements in repairs, I really stress what I said earlier about Councillor Romay. It's a sparklingly determined leadership backed by a new team of senior officers that have seen us bringing that down. And I envisage that the cost of complaints will come down as we get more proactively into a new programme, which we're sort of on that spectrum. I remember saying to the chief executive about 2 years ago, about 3 years ago, have we turned the corner back yet? And she was like very cross at me for asking the question because we hadn't. We have now, and I think things are getting an awful lot better, and there's a lot more to do, but I'm really pleased with what we've done so far. Okay, is that item agreed? Thank you very much. I close. Please note any of the forward plan, and at this point, with 3 minutes to go, I close the meeting.